This is Ocean Robbins, and I am so excited that in less than 6 minutes we're going to begin day 5 of the Food Revolution Summit. We'll start today by sharing an interview with leading cardiologist Dr. Kahn at 11 Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. GMT. An hour after that, we'll have an interview with Dr. David Perlmutter, and at the top of the hour after that, we'll be on the line with Dr. Neal Barnard. The subject for today's interviews is the science. Get proven results for vibrant health. One of the things that I am so grateful for is the extraordinary doctors we're privileged to be interviewing in this summit. These are doctors who recognize that food is the foundation of health. They know that food can be medicine, and that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So instead of focusing mainly on just treating symptoms, they focus their books, their organizations, their advocacy, their medical research on promoting health. And in the process, these doctors have shined brilliant lights of knowledge that is helping to transform and uplift and heal millions of lives. We've received such a beautiful response to this summit so far, with thousands of comments and more than 325,000 participants now joining in. As we go through this day, I want to invite you to post and engage in the comments stream on the broadcast page. You can share what you're learning, what you hear that's inspiring you, that you want to sort of call out, shout out for everyone else, what you're getting out of the summit, what you think of different speakers, how it's landing in your life. And if you like, you can also respond to engage with the comments of other people too. Remember to refresh the comments so you can see the most recent ones that have been submitted. We heard from Barbara Garish, who said, "I've been listening to all the episodes from the beginning and have listened avidly to all so far. Dr. Lee, Chris Wark, and Anthony William positively have blown me away with their knowledge, sharing, and cutting-edge information. When Chris was talking about his mom, that was me. My 2 children growing up would tease me about my practices in eating, but now as adults, one is a DO and the other is a scientist, they both are health fanatics and making me so proud. I admit there are times that I do not practice what I believe, but I am totally inspired to stay on the true path to healthy eating. I can't thank you enough for bringing all this information to us. I have learned so much, and you are doing the world a tremendous service. Praise God." Thank you so much, Barbara. And we heard from Renee Breedlove, who said, "Crying my eyes out. Chris, thank you for standing your ground. I have been vegan for 3 years for catastrophic debilitating illness and gotten huge results. For 3 years, I have received nothing but flack from friends and relatives in almost defensive fashion. I have felt so left out and so belittled. I quit going out to most family functions because of the teasing. I went from only being able to walk a half block to walking 10 miles. My husband is now joining me on the journey. But I learned from you today. God is the author and finisher of everything I am. I am going to stand my ground and not hide anymore. I am seeking people to surround myself with that can support my healthy eating lifestyle. I am so grateful for this summit. Thank you, thank you." Well, Renee, I am so glad that you have found support in your food choices that have enabled you to have such a transformation from not being able to walk a half block to walking 10 miles. And I'm celebrating you. I want you to know you are not alone. You are not an oddball. You are brilliant. You are wonderful. And we celebrate and honor your transformation, and we stand with you. And I want everybody right now listening to know, if you've ever felt alone, isolated, if you've ever felt criticized, if you've ever felt unsupported for wanting to do the right thing for your health, for wanting to be in integrity with your values and your dreams for your life, I want to declare right now you are not alone. And you are actually incredibly intelligent. And we, the Food Revolution Summit community, I want you to see 325,000 people standing with you, cheering you on, honoring you, affirming you, supporting you, guiding you, and inspiring you. We're here with you. And yes, I want everybody to know that there is a powerful wellspring of support behind you. Your health is just too important to leave it in the hands of the status quo or in the hands of doctors or the food industry or government who don't get your values, your dreams, your body, and the importance of food. It's really up to every one of us to learn what's up and to apply what we're learning. At the same time, every so often I wonder what would happen if our government and medical system and food industry started pulling in the right direction. What if the healthcare system actually cared for and focused on health? There's an old saying, if the people lead, the leaders will follow. I don't know for sure how long it's going to take for all of our leaders to follow, but I know one thing. When it comes to food and health, it's time for the people to lead. We need to lead with knowledge and with action. And that, of course, is why we're here right now. Today's topic is the science. Get proven solutions for vibrant health. We're going to start off with world-renowned cardiologist, Dr. Joel Kahn. In fact, here we go. Welcome to the Food Revolution Summit, where we explore how you can heal your body and your world with food. This is Ocean Robbins, and I am joined by my dad and colleague, John Robbins, in welcoming our guest, Dr. Joel Kahn. As one of the world's top cardiologists, Dr. Joel Kahn has treated thousands of patients. And if he had his way, he'd prevent so many heart attacks that he'd never need to treat another patient again. In addition to his practice saving lives as a cardiologist, Dr. Kahn lectures around the world, inspiring health through nutrition. He's also founder of Green Space Cafe, Metro Detroit's first plant-based restaurant and bar, and the author of several best-selling books, including The Whole Heart Solution and The Plant-Based Solution. So now, Joel, my dad and I are so grateful to you for your brilliant work, and we're so glad to have this time with you. And now for this interview, I'm going to hand it now to my dad, John Robbins.
Well, thank you, Ocean, for that introduction, and thank you, Joel, for being with us.
It's a giant honor, excitement, and responsibility that we reach to all these great people you have listening and give them your insight, my 30 years of cardiology practice, university cardiology practice insight. We're going to do some good things for people today.
Yes, we will. And have fun. In your new book, your splendid new book, The Plant-Based Solution, you write that in over 3 decades practicing medicine in some of the greatest medical centers anywhere, you've been struck, you wrote, by the immense power we have in choosing to make the 65,000 or so meals we decide upon into moments of health and purpose. Joel, what is this immense power you speak of?
Well, it's so clear. The science is so crystal clear that food is information to our body, and we can slant that towards healthy and longevity information, and we can, maybe out of ignorance, lack of skills, social pressure, slant that towards information that ages and information that promotes disease. And life's no fun with disease. One of my favorite quotes ever is, a person with good health has 1,000 dreams, and a person with poor health has only one dream left to get it back. So we take for granted this miracle that we, live in, and we know we can, just like a garden, we can water it, we can till it, we can care for it. And I'm talking about every organ in the body in total, certainly the heart. And we have that amazing power. Yes, we have genetics. Yes, we have the environment. We have to wear our seatbelt and prepare for accidental issues. But day to day, nothing is more powerful than the single decision, what's on our plate, fork, knife, spoon, and all that great work that you have done for so many years laid the foundation for me to use it in my patients, use it in the medical schools, use it in the hospitals, and the response is remarkable. Self-care is the best care for sure.
Well, I agree with you about that self-care is the best care and really the essential care. But coming from a doctor, there's something about our society that teaches us that doctors are in charge of our care. They know best, and they're in charge of our well-being. If we're sick, we go to them to get better. They fix us in some way. They have a pill for whatever ill. And there's something in that conditioning that alienates us from our power to really take charge of our health.
Yeah, and there are aspects, of course, that makes perfect sense. If you need an operation, you're not going to take out your appendix at home. And if you need advice on chemotherapy and advanced pharmaceutical agents, which have their role, I'm not anti 100 years of progress. God knows I'm right in the middle of the medical world, and sometimes you grab an operation, grab a medication, and majority of the time you should grab lifestyle centered on this diet we'll talk about. But when so for those aspects, you need an expert. Maybe a second opinion, third opinion, you need an expert, however. When it comes to nutrition, we know we can't turn to the majority of the medical world and get reliable information. The hours, the training, the emphasis, the board certifications are just simply not yet there. They're no different 30 years ago than they are now. There's little pockets of hope and little pockets of excitement about cooking courses for physicians and medical school curriculums that at least offer a spectrum and at least a few hours on plant-based nutrition, but it's still less than 50% of medical schools will the word nutrition be heard. You'll do a better job of educating your healthcare team than probably your healthcare team will do of educating you when it comes to picking the best fuel for the human body.
Some of our listeners might find this hard to believe, but you know that each of us actually has 50,000 miles of arteries coursing through our bodies and another 50,000 miles of veins, a distance that would travel nearly 4 times around the entire Earth, which is an amazing thought. And every inch of those blood vessels are lined by something that is very thin, just one cell layer thin, called the endothelium. And Joel, what I want to ask you is, what is it about the endothelium that makes it so important to understanding the power of optimal eating?
Yeah, the endothelium is fascinating. You just shot out some absolutely accurate statistics most don't know. This endothelium is like wallpaper. Every artery, the big one called the aorta, small ones like heart arteries about the size of a number 2 pencil, then all these branching like a tree trunk down to very, very fine little arteries and veins. And this wallpaper makes this miracle molecule that 20 years ago won the Nobel Prize in Medicine, nitric oxide. You want to age gracefully, nitric oxide. You want to have sexual performance, nitric oxide. You want to have normal blood pressure and healthy arteries, nitric oxide. And we damage our endothelium. It actually, if we took our endothelium out, it would cover 6 or 7 tennis courts. If you think about this gigantic, like a high school or a college tennis area, all that is this living organ. And when we smoke, when we are sedentary, when we eat animal foods and saturated fat-rich foods, maybe high sugar, not as clear-cut on that, but clearly animal saturated fat, we're shooting holes in our endothelium. It won't make nitric oxide. We won't have sexual responsiveness. We won't have normal blood pressure, normal arteries. But we can bathe the same 6, 7 tennis courts with whole foods and brightly colored and rainbow foods of the fruits and vegetables. We know there's certain ones, watermelon, arugula, pine nuts, kale, that just beets that just power our endothelium. But all the plant-based world is going to power that endothelium. And you'll live better, you'll live longer, you'll live healthier, you won't need medication for a lot of conditions. So, again, self-care from the garden works real well into the mainstream of the science we know about the human body.
When you spoke of nitric oxide, I found myself thinking about the fact that you're a practicing cardiologist and you have literally been inside more than 15,000 people's hearts.
Yeah, that's correct. I trained from 1986 on to be not just a cardiologist, but one that specialized in intervention. I would go in and do an angiogram and place balloons or stents throughout the arteries in the body. And it's a miraculous thing to watch somebody in the early stages of a heart attack and just literally make it stop and literally see electrocardiogram, blood pressure, patient symptoms, and really their whole future brighten up in a mad dash, a crazy drive to the hospital, a crazy run to the cath lab, but to be that impactful and helpful. But that is not the majority of people, and I put in a stent that's maybe at most an inch long. And their arteries are probably in the range of close to 1.5 feet. So I've treated an inch of 1.5 to 2 feet. And every inch of that arterial system, just in the heart arteries alone, is prone to another blockage and another blockage. So nothing about the stent changes anything but that inch. And it has to be what you bathe your endothelium, what you have coursing through your blood, that's going to determine what 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the road. So there's very few cases we found that stents actually save lives or add years to lives. Heart attack may be one of those situations, but there's more people getting stents than there are people getting heart attacks. And the education on lifestyle, there should be a required course. You have a stent or a bypass, you've been in an emergency room, you have to do this 6-week curriculum, or you aren't allowed back in the medical system. I mean, boy, that's fanciful. We don't have that. But that would be the best of worlds. Great medical care if needed in emergency, with the best self-care lifestyle education that is going to center around that beautiful plant diet that we all know works so well for the heart and many other organs.
Speaking of many other organs, when the drug Viagra was first developed, it was not intended actually to be a drug for erectile dysfunction. It was identified, rather, as a compound that had favorable effect on arteries and was tested by the pharmaceutical company Pfizer for the treatment of heart disease and high blood pressure. Viagra was originally developed as a drug for heart disease, and recently it's been studied in Sweden for that purpose. This study involved 43,000 men who had already suffered a first heart attack and found that among these guys, those who took Viagra or similar drugs had a 33% reduced risk of dying by any cause during the course of the study. So what I want to ask you, Joel, is why does a drug that's good for heart arteries prove to be effective for erectile dysfunction? And is there a link between the sexual response of men and women and their cardiovascular health?
Right. So there's actually a few interesting layers of answer there. And it turns out the ultimate way that Viagra, Levitra, and Cialis work is the same pathway as the nitric oxide. So if you feed your body those beets, that arugula, those pine nuts, that watermelon, and really any of the fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and legume families that we emphasize because they're natural health-promoting principles, you will be eating natural Viagra and natural Cialis. And the data is there of improved sexual performance and enjoyment amongst those that choose to eat outside of the animal world. Because it is ultimately the same pathway. You don't need a pill. You need blueberries, not a blue pill, if you start early enough in life. And there's a very important clue also. I literally gave a lecture today in a large grocery store, and I saw a man in an aisle talking to one of the employees, and I overheard, and he's talking about he has erectile dysfunction, man, about 52, and I pulled him aside. I said, brother, get whatever supplement you choose there, whether it's beet powder or arginine, okay, get your heart checked. Erectile dysfunction is the canary in the coal mine. The arteries that supply sexual organs may get clogged and cause symptoms before you have the chest pain, the heart attack, the stroke. Don't stop just with the supplement. Go over to the produce department and load up, and then go to a competent preventive physician cardiologist and get the appropriate testing, because it's a clear-cut clue.
When you're describing the predictive power, really, of erectile dysfunction to predict heart disease, how powerful is that predictive power compared to, say, smoking or high blood pressure or a family history of heart attacks?
Yeah, there's actually one fantastic epidemiology study in the county around the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota called Olmsted County that actually typically if you smoke, you might elevate your risk of a heart attack or stroke threefold, fourfold, or if you want to say it more dramatically, 300%, 400%. In this rather well-respected study in Minnesota, it was actually more like 4,000 times higher. Men who reported erectile dysfunction but said, I don't have heart disease, at a 40 times to 50 times higher risk over 5 to 10 years. So like every other aspect, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That's when you want to get in. That's when you want to know your heart burden of atherosclerosis, hardening arteries, your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your blood sugar, your lipoprotein A. You need to know that really in detail. And you might have an opportunity to have a double win, both improve your erectile dysfunction through better lifestyle centering on diet, and also improve and lower your risk of having, seriously and potentially a life-threatening complication of cardiovascular disease. So it's a win-win.
You mentioned nuts and arugula and beets, and I'm thinking about spinach and kale and chard and bok choy, the greens, and really all nuts and seeds. These are foods that are high in dietary nitrates, and they will boost nitric oxide levels, and they will enhance sexual performance and be good for the heart at the same time, exactly by the same mechanism. Joel, are there particular foods that are harmful to sexual performance and to heart health?
Yes, and the fascinating data. I think if you ask most people on the street, not everybody, do you think eating butter every day? Do you think eating greasy meats every day? Do you think eating Velveeta cheese every day is health promoting or health harmful? And the majority of people will say, look, I know that's not good for you, but maybe once in a while, moderation and everything. There are still some people outside the norm that would list all those foods as healthy foods, and I disagree vehemently based on science and clinical studies. But there's fascinating data what happens with just one meal, just one Egg McMuffin, just one serving of animal bacon and sausage and cheeses, and just one meal will release into the bloodstream a flood of toxic chemicals and actually often bacterial byproducts. The bottom line is hurts your endothelium. Within minutes causes your endothelium to shut down nitric oxide production. So the worst thing you can do if you're going on a date or it's your honeymoon or it's your anniversary, the worst thing you can do is load up at the buffet on the cruise or something with the prime rib and with the burgers and with the bacon in the morning and with the cheese tray. It's absolutely the most sexual damping food you can choose if you understand what that does, and let alone, your sexual function. It does the same thing. There are people, James Gandolfini, famous actor, Sopranos, maybe 3.5 years ago now, huge, giant, greasy fettuccine Alfredo meal in Rome, drops dead of a heart attack an hour later. I'm not the only one. Others have commented. There could indeed be one meal, one drop to the ground relationship, both for heart and sexual function. Everything droops when you eat that way.
Everything droops. There are people today saying that meat and butter and cheese have a central role to play in an optimally healthy diet. There's a best-selling book with that as a subtitle. That concept is around in the food movement today. Joel, how much validity does that view have to you?
As Dr. David Katz at Yale says, there's nothing hypothetical about heart disease. This is so crucial to hundreds of thousands of lives in the United States alone and millions worldwide that this is a serious issue if you go off and recommend butter and cheese and meats based on some biased data. So this is all basically built on two studies in 2010 and 2014 called meta-analyses, not new science, but a review of previous studies. You can pick which one, you can manipulate the criteria. And both studies, the minute they were published, were resoundingly criticized for bad scientific form. But the studies said simply they couldn't validate a many-decade-old relationship between high animal saturated fat foods, chicken, cheese, beef, eggs, and the development of heart disease. They never recommended eating those foods. They, even in their poor scientific setup, simply said they couldn't validate it. But whoa, maybe it was the meat, dairy, egg industry backing scientists, writers, and such, but it became as if adding butter was the message from those scientific studies, although there are hundreds that refute even those two studies. So, it's a very sordid world of billions of dollars that are swirling around. The public's getting it. We know that dairy consumption's dropping like a stone. We're seeing red meat consumption go down, and soon many plant-based substitutes and such. So the public can see through this charade of covers of magazines, but it's confusing to medical students, to physicians, to nurses, to healthcare providers that have to give advice, and the public, of course. It's confusing. It's not actually confusing scientifically, though.
It gets confused when prominent people pursue an agenda that is different than just what will make people the healthiest, what will benefit their lives the most. And sometimes they write best-selling books and become very influential. Now, you recently appeared on a national TV show opposite Dr. Stephen Gundry, who may be single-handedly today responsible for the fact that a lot of people are now avoiding beans and other legumes out of fear of lectins. And they're also avoiding many vegetables, again, thanks to Dr. Gundry, out of fear of lectins. So, Joel, what's the straight shooting truth? Should we avoid beans and certain vegetables due to their lectin content?
I've met Dr. Gundry. You're right. We debated on the doctor show and had quite a time of it, although I think if anybody were to search that out, they'd agree that I presented a scientific case superior to anything he had to say, which wasn't actually hard on my part because it's just authentic. But, he'll go around. This is a former chairman of a department of heart surgery at Loma Linda University, a man who has academic credentials and therefore influences people, and say, if you eat 5 kidney beans, you'll drop dead if they're not cooked properly. Well, that alone is just nothing but a scare and bastardization of the truth. If you had raw red kidney beans, you'll get an upset stomach. I don't know, maybe you'll vomit or have diarrhea. Nobody's died. I mean, go to the science. It's clear cultures that eat beans, which is essentially all healthy cultures, know how to cook them. We can buy them canned. They've been pressure cooked. There's no concern. Nobody's advocating raw beans as a staple of the diet. Yet, in fact, and just to conclude, when you look around the world at one of the most important nutrition principles, what do people that live long and healthy lives, particularly 100 years old and more, centenarians eat? The only common food group is legumes. It's beans, peas, lentils, and the hundreds of varieties. So, in fact, he's taking data that should be eat of a food group that extends life according to, cultural and epidemiologic studies and scaring the public. I couldn't agree with you more. Yes, he wants you to eat fruits and vegetables, God bless you, although on some of his diets, the only fruit you're allowed to eat is avocado. Just take the other 3,000 away. So it's a sordid plan that butter gets a higher nod for health than beans do, and that's simply intolerable.
You mentioned the longest lived peoples in the world. Of course, Dan Buettner has studied them. He's the National Geographic explorer who coined the term the blue zones. He found 5 areas where people live the longest and healthiest and happiest lives on Earth. And one of the things he found they have in common is they all eat, all of them, despite being in different parts of the world and having different cultural traditions and, of course, speaking different languages. They all eat a lot of beans.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is a message every listener should take to heart. Whether you want to soak them, whether you want to buy a nice canned bean that has hopefully a can without BPA lining, of which are nice options nowadays, so you don't contaminate your food with an environmental toxin none of us should be exposed to, whether you want to get a pressure cooker and make a nice chili or stew with beans and cook it overnight. There is no health crisis. There's a few isolated cases of schools or cafeterias undercooking beans and people got a little upset stomach. That's the end of the crisis. And what you're going to omit is one of the greatest sources of prebiotic, probiotic, fiber, magnesium, health-sustaining foods. We should rename the blue zones the bean zones because literally, if you study Dan Buettner's work, as you say, the center of the 5 zones says right there, legumes. It's the only food they all have in common. And it might be a soybean in Japan. It might be a chechi bean in Sardinia. It might be a kidney bean in Loma Linda, but they're beans, and we should enjoy all the varieties of every type everywhere we can.
I've been studying the environmental impact of our food choices and our food system for a long time, and I've been impressed by what we would gain by eating beans instead of beef. From an environmental point of view, it lowers our carbon footprint, our ecological footprint dramatically. It reduces the greenhouse gas emissions dramatically. Joel, speaking as a cardiologist, what do you see as the advantages of this kind of shift, of eating beans instead of beef for people's hearts?
Well, I'll just say kudos to you because the environment matters, and for some reason, we argue nonstop about nutrition patterns. It's harder to create an argument that it's less cruel to eat plants. It's obviously less cruel, although somebody tagged me on social media today that I was slaughtering sentient vegetables and found some New York Times reference. I mean, people will go to all kinds of crazy lengths, and they just make for humor in my world. And similarly, the environmental issue is clear-cut, and it's not you and me. It's United Nations, it's Oxford, it's the USDA, the FDA that says, eat beans, not beef, to save the world. And all of us should be concerned about that. But in the heart world, absolutely. Beans instead of beef will give you fiber you'll never find in beef, and that's one of the healthiest and cholesterol-lowering foods you can find. Beans will give you magnesium, great for blood pressure, great for skip beats and arrhythmia. Meat will give you animal saturated fat, which will raise your blood cholesterol, decades of research on that, and promote atherosclerosis. So it's a powerful move to just, if you do nothing but gain a couple recipes, a bean chili, not a beef chili, a bean taco, not a beef taco, a bean soup, not a beef soup. That triple play will both be a win for the animals, a win for the environment, and mainly a win for your cardiovascular status, your weight control, maybe as we talked, your sexual performance for years ahead. And you've really given up nothing. You've gained a tremendous amount.
Well, I think also you will retain cognitive function more thoroughly, and longer. There was research published last year in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition that found that diet is the most important risk factor for Alzheimer's. And the study's authors concluded that consumption of meat increased dementia risk the most. And meat was followed by eggs and high-fat dairy, while high intakes of fruits and vegetables and whole grains reduced the risk for Alzheimer's disease considerably. We now have a compelling number of studies saying that consuming a diet high in vegetables and fruits and low in refined carbs and saturated fats while remaining socially and physically active are the keys to retaining healthy brain function as we age. Now, Joel, in your new book, your splendid book, The Plant-Based Solution, you described why a whole foods plant-based diet is so effective at protecting the brain from cognitive impairments and Alzheimer's. Can you explain?
Yeah, so absolutely, and thank you for pointing that out. The lower your homocysteine level, the cleaner your arteries, and there's data the longer you live. It's one of the most important biomarkers that predict survival, a low homocysteine level. On the other hand, meat has an amino acid called methionine in it. Methionine is part of the methylation cycle that raises homocysteine. So greens are the cure, meat is the enemy in terms of having an optimal homocysteine level, and that all affects the brain and the brain vessels directly.
The relationship between elevated homocysteine levels and dramatically increased Alzheimer's risk and risk for all kinds of dementias is profound. And so anything we can do at a nutritional level that will lower our homocysteine level, we really should do.
Absolutely. And, that is the importance of eating a variety of plant foods, but probably following most physicians' recommendation of supplementing with B12. B12 is part also, along with folate from green leafies. Folate is a natural vitamin. B12 a little harder to get for everybody, meat eaters and plant eaters, but taking that B12 to ensure that you have the lowest homocysteine possible is just good medicine as you get into this increasing plant-based diet that so many of the listeners are following.
I think that's particularly important for people as they get older for two reasons. One, as people get older, there tends to be a decline in cognitive function, memory, and so forth, and increased risk for dementia, all kinds of, including Alzheimer's. And secondly, the human body, as it ages, seems to experience a decline in the ability to absorb vitamin B12. So, to my mind, those two factors make it all the more important to be sure that you're getting enough B12. And I take supplementary B12 every day.
Yeah, and I would recommend that to everybody. There are some out there that feel you can get enough from foods and nutritional yeast, but it is a water-soluble vitamin. The excess B12 gets eliminated easily from the body and not stored to any toxic level. And it's sort of recommended, not sort of, it is recommended if you're just an average American age 50 and older that B12 should be part of your supplementation program for optimal brain health. So it's really not a vegan, non-vegan issue. This does become a soft underbelly of those that argue that the plant diet isn't optimal, is that, well, you have to take supplements. How can that ever be a optimal diet? Well, you take maybe a B12 occasionally, a vitamin D or algae-based omega-3, but what don't you take? Insulin, Lipitor, chemotherapy. In some cases, we can't claim total absence of disease. I tell people eating plant diets still follow medical guidelines because it enhances the odds of avoiding and reversing disease. It doesn't take them down to zero. But so the trade-off for one or two vitamins is, a 80% reduction in the odds you're going to suffer a chronic disease. I mean, I think most people would say that's a pretty good trade-off.
I think so. And if it means, even if you have the genetic predisposition to Alzheimer's, of the worst type, the studies show that by eating a healthy plant-based whole foods diet, you can delay the onset of Alzheimer's by 15 years, and that matters.
Yes, you're right. There is, in a clinic like mine in Detroit, an advanced heart clinic, I do that genetic Alzheimer's test. There's actually several dozen, but there's only one that's most talked about. It's called ApoE gene locus, simple blood test. And there are a substantial number of people that have a gene that favors early loss of cognitive function and development of Alzheimer's. It's kind of scary, but lifestyle is the key. We know that. And what aren't you supposed to eat if you carry that gene? You're not supposed to eat a diet rich in saturated fat. What do you find in chicken? Saturated fat. Beef, saturated fat. Chicken, cheese, saturated fat. Eggs, saturated fat. What do you find in green leafies? Essentially none. What do you find in whole foods? Essentially none, coming from the plant world. So you're already set up for success, whether you pursue that blood test or not, if you're eating a plant diet that's, moving towards, or it has already become completely plant-derived for years and years. So it's a very brain-protective, folate-rich diet. And so take your B12 every day, maybe sublingual so you absorb it easily, would be, the doctor's prescription.
A couple of years ago, Joel, you wrote an article titled, "What Paleo Gets Right, a Vegan Cardiologist Explains." Joel, what do the paleo diets get right? Can you explain?
Well, it might now have to be what paleo got right, because it is a moving target. This idea that we can pattern our modern diet after a diet of 50 to 100,000 years ago to gain back that great health we had when people lived to age 30. I don't even get the whole concept. But if you read a professor in Colorado, a PhD, Dr. Loren Cordain, sort of the father, not the real father, sort of the father of the paleo movement, his first book, Don't Eat Junk Food. I love that. He said saturated fat causes clogged arteries. Don't eat eggs and cheese. Got to support that as a cardiologist. Fill your plate with leafy greens from the garden. Got to love that. And then he's going to be very selective about wild meats, wild fish, venison, bison, not grocery store level meats that 95+% of America eats. Okay, it's a snobbish, difficult diet. Some might say similar to a totally plant-based diet, although I think it's much easier. And my friends that are following a paleo diet tell me it's much easier to find. I'll tell you an anecdote there in a minute. A plant-based diet. I had lunch with, some people will know the name, Dave Asprey of the Bulletproof Nutrition and Butter, Coconut Oil, Coffee fame. So we were in a cafeteria together. He could not find food to eat that wasn't vegan, plant-based, because it is actually more difficult to find bison in a cafeteria where you can find broccoli and salad. It just was a funny and humbling moment to realize which of these diets is more accessible to the public in most circumstances.
One of the things I've thought vegans can learn from the paleo folks is to eat less sugar, eat less processed foods, eat less vegan junk food, eat less refined carbs. And I think the paleo people can learn from the vegans to eat less meat and less dairy. And I think if we can find the common denominators, which I think Loren Cordain actually had his finger on that pulse at times, we have a much better chance of creating a food movement that is unified and powerful and helps all of us to live healthier lives.
Absolutely. And, I don't like to take pot shots because, the idea isn't here to make enemies. The idea isn't to be obnoxious to people. But, it is sometimes, unfortunately, a bit of a war when we discuss diet. People have such well-ingrained positions to take, and they don't want to budge an inch. So one interesting comment, and then I'll conclude on that topic, was the real founder of the paleo movement in the current era was a physician, Dr. Boyd Eaton, MD, who wrote a paper in 1985 called Paleolithic Nutrition in a prominent journal, and brought up this hypothesis that patterning our diet after pre-grain, pre-agricultural times, more than 10,000 years ago, might enhance our health. Again, I don't know why you pick a culture that had a short lifespan when we've already exceeded that, but nonetheless, it was attractive. And then about 2 years ago in Boston, Boyd Eaton said, now 32 years or so after that paper, stop doing what I told you because it's harming the environment. Until we can support all this animal production without destroying the environment, go back to plants because it's just not tenable. And that's a very compelling and telling argument. And the last thing I'd say, I'm a member of a group, international group called True Health Initiative, which is 400 nutrition experts, some with MDs, PhDs, RDs, professors that have agreed on a few core principles. And we're not vegan, we're not paleo, we're not keto. We're just people trying to make a recommendation to the public. And the four tenets are eat local, close to the ground, meaning non-refined, largely plants, and drink water, tea, and coffee. I mean, these 400-plus nutritional experts say that we can live with. So I hope we don't just confuse the public, butter good, butter bad, and you get two MDs saying diametrically opposed views, because that just doesn't help anybody. Those kind of four principles are pretty easy to deal with.
I'm thinking about cancer for a moment. It's on a lot of people's minds. Most of us know someone in our families often who has experienced cancer. About 1 in 8 U.S. women will develop invasive breast cancer over the course of her lifetime. And this has a lot of women worried. But Joel, not many of them know that they can drastically reduce that level of risk by eating well. I'm thinking of one study where researchers followed 30,000 postmenopausal women with no history of breast cancer, and they followed them for 7 years. And they found that 3 simple steps, very simple: limiting alcohol, eating mostly plant foods, and maintaining a healthy body weight, just those steps was associated with a 62% lower risk of breast cancer. Joel, what is it about plant foods that make them so protective against cancer?
Yeah, and it is exciting data. It's still probably relatively obscure that one of the heroes in this movement from the medical science standpoint, Dr. Dean Ornish, started publishing in 2005. Here we are 13 years later, studies that men with prostate cancer can literally shrink both the size of the prostate cancer, the blood marker called the PSA, reverse a lot of their illness by adopting a plant-based diet, published with the best urologists, the best cancer specialists, prominent journals. But how often does a man with prostate cancer get told about the impact of diet in preventing and reversing prostate cancer? And so many men are advised to just watch the condition, but it's watching with no therapy. Here we have an easy and powerful therapy called plant foods that actually do work. And similarly, as you pointed out, it's true in the breast cancer field, and quality sources of soy are absolutely fine for breast cancer patients or the prevention of breast cancer. It's, we often talk about what don't plants have. They don't have that saturated fat. They don't drive your blood cholesterol up. There's some pretty compelling data that a high cholesterol level or cholesterol itself actually may help cancer cells metastasize and spread, which is interesting basic science research, and it may have some relevance to the human condition. And that's what, plants don't have, is they're not going to drive your cholesterol up like animal foods. And on the other hand, they have all those amazing phytonutrients. They're going to have, put some turmeric on your food. You've got 300 active chemicals in your turmeric spice alone, one of which, curcumin, is, a superpower anti-inflammatory. You eat your broccoli, and it's hundreds of chemicals, but one is called sulforaphane that has an amazing property to activate our antioxidant and immune system. White button-cap mushrooms, beta-glucans, activate our immune system towards more defense against early cancer cells circulating. If somebody's listening to this and just thinking about a plant diet, give up processed red meats, the single food source most associated with colorectal cancer, breast cancer, congestive heart failure, heart disease, adult diabetes, bacon, salami, bologna, hot dogs. It's criminal that hospitals still serve this food with all the scientific data of the clear connection. So just give them up right today, and you've already dropped your cancer risk and your heart disease risk, let alone the association with erectile dysfunction we kind of talked about a while back.
You just said something I think I just want to repeat it even. I want to be sure people get it. Well, we know that the World Health Organization and the International Agency for Research on Cancer has formally declared processed meat to be a proven carcinogen to humans, which puts processed meat in the same category as asbestos and the AIDS virus. But as you mentioned, to this day, many modern hospitals are still serving processed red meats: hot dogs, sausages, bacon, ham, bologna, salami. Joel, how do you feel when you see the temples of Western medicine serving foods to their patients that are known, that have been proven to cause cancer?
Yeah, it is the most conflicted part of the medical system that, cannot be tolerated and requires uniform speaking out and criticism. And I've taken a very aggressive stance. Dr. Neal Barnard has taken a very aggressive stance. I have the only Facebook page in the world dedicated to constantly every day making an issue of this. It's called Ban Hospital Food Carcinogens. And all I post about is bacon cancer, bacon cancer. My major hospital just added a burger joint called Wahlburgers. Kind of cute because you get Mark Wahlberg to visit, but the burgers and the cheese is the same as you're going to find, most other fast food outlets. My other university hospital has a Wendy's, and they just added a Chick-fil-A in the lobby. I mean, you can get a Baconator burger while you're in line with your chemotherapy dripping in your arm. I mean, if there's no, greater calling card for we have to change, this food is medicine connection and raise the bar and just publicly embarrass if needed, cry out for change, get on boards. But it's money, money, money. I mean, there's so much money being made in that Wendy's, that Chick-fil-A, that Wahlburgers, that's all that's seen, and it's criminal. It's unethical. The AMA has said it's unethical, but it does not stop because everybody's afraid to speak out, and most physicians are employed by hospitals nowadays, of which I'm not, and I can take pot shots, and I invite everybody. Write letters to the CEO of hospitals. When you're visiting relatives in the cafeteria, don't stay quiet.
Joel, the fact that hospitals are still serving cancer-causing food to patients speaks to me of something that you and I reflected on for a moment earlier, which is that the medical system as a whole doesn't seem to understand the power of nutrition, the power of food to either produce health or produce disease, in the case of processed meats. And very, very often, people will read a book that you wrote or I wrote or one of our summit speakers have written, or they'll listen to one of our Food Revolution summits like this one, and they'll change their diets, and they'll experience amazing results. Their joints will stop being inflamed, they'll lose weight, their breathing will improve, their sleep will get better, they'll start feeling younger and looking better and more vibrant, and they'll experience a slew of dramatic and life-affirming things. And then they'll go to their doctors, and they'll tell them what's happened, and they'll expect to be greeted with appreciation and interest. But all too often, they report afterwards that their doctors hardly paid any attention to them. At best, the doctors might say, well, keep doing whatever you're doing. But even then, the doctors won't be curious, won't show any real interest in how their patients got better. One person I know confronted her doctor about his lack of interest in how she had reversed a bunch of diseases. His reply to her was, well, you're just an anecdote. You're not statistically significant. She didn't take that sitting down. She replied to him, there are a lot of people like me, and even if you want to keep your eyes closed and you don't see it, there are a lot of us. And by the way, the plural of anecdote is data. I thought that was a pretty good response myself.
Powerful stuff. And, even worse is the patients that tell me, their primary care doctor, specialist, tried to talk them out of it. Said, you better add back, for your chemotherapy, add back chicken, add back, red meat, which is just diabolical and conflicted. And, these aren't bad people. I am one of these people, but, the access to information like you're putting out in this summit is a rare bird amongst the staff doc. Now, I'm very heartened that the medical students are open-minded. The medical students will say the word vegan or plant-based. They may know who Rip Esselstyn is and you and Ocean are. I mean, if you're 24, 25, this is just part of American life, but not at age 45, 50. They're just reading Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and the cover of Time magazine, and they're getting inaccurate information just like the public. So they're of no real asset, unfortunately.
Is there any advice you would give to people who are interested in a healthy eating path in dealing with their physicians?
So there are some nice resources. I mean, you literally could loan a doc, a nurse, a PA, a copy of Forks Over Knives, a copy of What the Health, a copy of A Diet for a New America or Food Revolution. You could print off Kaiser Permanente, the largest HMO in America, has been progressive, and they've got a couple articles. If you Google Physician's Guide to Plant-Based Nutrition, you could hand your doctor that 7 or 8 page really research article with dozens of references. You could refer them to nutritionfacts.org or Dr. Neal Barnard lecture. I mean, it's out there. they're busy people. They don't have much time. There is no sales rep that's bringing them this information over lunch. But, that's all we can do is we can individually, one by one, hope that we can raise some awareness. We've just briefly done something really neat in Detroit by accident. 4 years ago, a patient called me and said, I hope you'll help me make a support group. I'm eating Plant Perfect to prevent bypass surgery. It's working amazing, but it's lonely. The wife, the coworkers, the family members think I'm nuts, really particular about what I put in my body. And I said, yes, we'll get 20 people together. Well, fast forward, that group now in Detroit has 4,800 members. We have lectures that fill an auditorium with 1,000 people, and we're bringing doctors in now for the first time. It took 4 years. Medical people in the Detroit area are coming and listening to lectures like People by Yourself and all the other luminaries. We have small groups. We have cooking classes. This is outside the hospital system. It's actually shaky finances. We don't have any real funding, but it's grassroots, and every city could have a plant-based nutrition support group, which is what this is called. So, I'm hopeful, but it's slow change, but it is happening.
It is, and it is happening thanks to you, Joel, and people like you. I see you as a beautiful example of a new kind of physician, one who's genuinely devoted to the wellness of your patients rather than simply being satisfied with prescribing drugs to manage the symptoms of illness. And as someone deeply versed in the medical world, you know that drugs and surgery have their place, but you also know that what matters far more, especially when it comes to chronic conditions, are the daily choices we make about what we eat and what we don't eat. On behalf of Ocean and myself and of everyone involved in the food revolution, I want to thank you, Joel, for your outstanding work, in your outspoken commitment to all of our health, and of course, for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's truly a great honor. We didn't get a chance to mention that it's your book in 1987, Diet for New America, that took me from a plant-eating medical resident to a real warrior, understanding for the first time the whole implication of what I had done starting about 10 years earlier, but it wasn't based on the profound platform that you have helped so many people, including my career. So thank you very much.
We've been talking with world-renowned cardiologist Dr. Joel Kahn, author of The Whole Heart Solution and The Plant-Based Solution. Joel, you've operated on more than 15,000 people's hearts, and you've saved a lot of lives in the process. But your wisdom and penetrating insights could save millions more. Thank you for telling it like it is, for your eloquence and passionate clarity, and for your partnership in this food revolution.
Well, thank you, and keep up the good work.
Well, thank you so much to Dr. Joel Kahn and to my dad and colleague, John Robbins, for that informative, inspiring conversation, to express your opinions on what you've been hearing and to find out what other people are saying. Post and engage in the comments section on the broadcast page. And make sure to refresh those comments using the button you'll see there so you can view the most recent comments that have been submitted. Our next presentation will be an interview with Dr. David Perlmutter. It will start at the top of the next hour in about 12 minutes. 9 a.m. Pacific Time, noon Eastern, 4 p.m. GMT, followed by Dr. Neal Barnard at the top of the hour after that. And now I want to respond to some of the beautiful and thoughtful comments we've been receiving. Kat Schreier said, listening to Dr. Joel Kahn and wondering, is it possible that when women experience less sexual response, dryness, loss of libido, etc., is this also a sign of reduced blood flow and a potential indicator of heart disease? Maybe not as visible as erectile dysfunction in men, and perhaps it's more socially acceptable for women not to enjoy sex. Has anyone studied the links between sexual response in women and heart disease, similar to the study Dr. Kahn mentions here between erectile dysfunction and heart disease in men? Well, Kat, in the medical literature, there are more than 800 references to studies that have shown a correlation between cardiovascular disease and challenges with sexual function that definitely occurred in women as well as in men. Now, there are a lot of factors that it can influence how your body responds to sexual interest and activity, but there is no doubt that patients with heart disease report significant difficulty, including lack of interest in sex, sexual dissatisfaction, and a decrease in the frequency of sexual activity. So blood flow is good for you. It's good for every part of your body. It's good for your brain. It's good for your heart. It's good for your sexual expression. It's good for your feelings of pleasure and aliveness in your body. And all the steps you can take to support healthy blood flow in your body are going to bring you more alive in every way. Kay Warren asked how to get and where and dosage for the best form of B12. And we had a bunch of questions about B12, so let me address that here. A lot of researchers recommend 1,000 micrograms per day of the methylcobalamin form of B12, and personally, I think that makes great sense. There's a supplement that I think could be a useful solution for a lot of people, and it's called Complement. This is a simple, clean spray that you can take directly or spray on food daily. You just do 6 squirts of it, and it provides B12, D3, and vegan sources of omega-3 fatty acids, DHA, and EPA, all in one. I think it's a wonderful support to be able to cover all these bases at once. Our family takes Complement every day. Our kids take it and enjoy it. And the company would like to gift you, Kay, with a 2-month supply. So our team will follow up with you to get that sent to you. Congratulations. And for anyone else who's interested, you can go to foodrevolution.org/complement. Again, that's foodrevolution.org/complement to find out more. Shannon Dixon said, "This is my favorite time of the year because of the food revolution. I love it, and I ordered the empowerment package before the summit even started. I am so thankful to you, John and Ocean, for putting this on every year. Even though I have been whole foods plant-based for several years now, I'm always learning something new. So many people still do not get how important it is to get rid of all the processed foods, chemicals, and animal products. I recently became a certified health coach so I can help people transition to healthier eating. However, convincing people they need to really change their diet is not an easy task. I'm so thankful for this summit and all you do." Well, thank you, Shannon, for spreading the word and engaging. You know, we can never control what another person does, what they think, or what they eat, but we do get to decide how we interact with them. That's what's in our file of control. And I think that when we choose to love our lives and love our relationship with food and share that love, that's one of the most contagious forms of the food revolution we can embody. There's nothing more satisfying than hearing someone ask, "Wow, you've lost weight," or "You're looking great. What's your trick? What's your secret?" That feels really good. And when you get those kinds of questions, that's an opening. That's an invitation to share a little more, maybe a lot more. While I'm at it, I'll mention one other trick that I find really helpful. It's to give somebody a book and put a little Post-it note on the front that says, "I thought of you on page 163," or "I thought of you on page 17," some spot that might relate to them. I promise you they're going to read page 163 or page 17, and they may just get hooked. Similarly with a film. At 16 minutes in, there's a great little piece that made me think of you. Or you could share the Food Revolution Summit. Tell them about one of the events. Say, "Hey, listen to the replay of Dr. Joel Kahn about 15 minutes in. He said something amazing about whatever." That will pull people in. People love feeling that you're thinking about them. And now I want to share with you a pre-recorded testimonial that has moved me very much. This comes from Dr. Pat Spenceley. He's a family practice doctor from Newberg, Oregon, who participated in one of our past Food Revolution summits. What he learned helped inspire him to make changes that have led him to lose 50 pounds and to transform his medical practice. Dr. Spenceley is an inspiring example to doctors everywhere. Here's his story in his own words.
Hi, my name is Pat Spenceley. I'm a family practice doctor. I'm 51 years old, and I practice in a small community office called Villa Medical in Newberg, Oregon. As I learned through the Food Revolution interviews that John Robbins performed, the things that really impacted you and I in our regular everyday life, I realized that the nutritional training that I got in medical school was just completely inadequate to function as a effective preventative physician. And the information that I learned at the Food Revolution not only changed my own personal lifestyle, but has helped me be much more effective as a communicator, as a physician. Brenda and I have been following a plant-based nutrition program now for a little over a year. I initially made the effort to change because of health reasons. I was suffering from asthma and using a very expensive injection that was given in my arms every 2 weeks, and still suffering from asthma bad enough to need to use prednisone several times over a year's period of time. I enabled myself to eat more plants, and in doing so, realized that the animal-based foods were just not to my liking. My health improved. My energy level is much better. I've lost over 50 pounds, and I feel that I'm going to live a longer, healthier life. As a physician, when people ask me prior to learning the material that John Robbins introduced me to, I was only able to provide patients with advice about medications, perhaps a referral to see a dietitian. Now I'm able to talk to them with enthusiasm about osteoporosis, about preventing cancer, about how to stay away from being diabetic, hypertensive, obese, to deal with their cholesterol in an effective way with a far less reliance on the drugs and the procedures. I feel that I am much more healthy. I've lost over 50 pounds. My energy level couldn't be better. I'm now able to swim 20,000 yards every week. I look and feel better, and I think I'm going to live a far healthier life.
Well, thank you so much to Dr. Pat Spenceley for those inspiring words and for the difference that he is making in the lives of his patients. You know, there are so many doctors who struggle not only to be informed about food, but also to practice this, because doctors are humans too. And ultimately, it's very hard to preach one thing and live another. So we help shift the course of history for everybody when we make these changes to make food the foundation of our health. We heard from Mary Sheridan, who said, on Super Bowl Sunday, I was going out the door for snacks, salt galore, when I received a call from radiology saying I was in heart failure. They told me to please come into the ER. Since then, with my world turned upside down, I've been searching for guidance on my diet. In Los Angeles, the PBS channels have many of the speakers giving lectures for fundraising. Well, I taped them and kept listening to them. As I kept searching, I now am participating in this summit. I've lost 25 pounds, and I hope to continue weight loss and improve my heart function. Well, Mary, we send our love to you and our prayers to you in your journey, and I'm so grateful. You've already lost 25 pounds. You are clearly on the path, and we want to help you stay on the path. So we're going to gift you with an empowerment package to support you in your journey even more. Now you can listen to these summit interviews any time of day or night for the rest of your life. You can share them with your loved ones. You'll have the transcripts to refer back to specific pieces, and you'll have more than $2,800 worth of curated bonuses we've collected to support you even more deeply on your path. So congratulations, our team will follow up with you. And congratulations also to all of the other most recent new empowerment package owners, including Michelle from Illinois, Susan from San Francisco, California, Peter from Washington, Linda from Quebec, Canada, Bill from Kansas, Ewa from Florida, David from Virginia, Christine from Maryland, Paul from Houston, Texas, Scott from Oklahoma, and everybody else who is owning this for life and supporting our mission and your health all at the same time. We heard from Sandra Jacoby, who said, great summit. After over 10 years on PPIs, I have 4 days free of them. I've been following the Whole Foods plant-based diet for 2 weeks, and morning blood sugar readings have dropped 33 points. I'm hooked. Well, Sandra, congratulations. And it is amazing how fast sometimes we can get results. When you stop feeding your body toxins, when you start nourishing your body and treating it right, you can get results very, very quickly in some cases. And this is actually very common. So blessings to you. Congratulations to you. And we want to just empower you to stay with it long term, because ultimately it isn't what you do for a day or a week that shifts the course of your destiny. It's what you do day in and day out. You can change path in a moment. And then when you stay on that path, that's when you get the sustained, lasting results. We heard from Kathy Knuchel, who said, absolutely loving this summit. 2 years ago, I had a major shift in my nutrition principles, back to the basics, veggies, nuts, seeds, organic, of course. completely moved away from the standard American diet. As a result, I shed 50 pounds. Who said it cannot be done at 60 years young? This summit is confirming that I am on the right track and also provides new ideas that can be easily incorporated. My gratitude to John and Ocean and all the speakers and all the technical staff in the background to make this awesome summit happen. Hats off and thank you. Well, Kathy, thank you so much. And we are so grateful. We're so excited for you releasing 50 pounds, 60 years young. I'm seeing you dancing and celebrating for many, many, many years to come. And yes, I want to just take a moment to express my gratitude for everybody who is making this summit happen. All of the speakers, of course, my dad, all of our staff all over the world, and of course, all of our participants, because together we are creating a food revolution. You know, there is something of a debate going on. A lot of people say that saturated fat is killing us. Other people say sugars and refined carbs are killing us. Here's what we know. When you eat a lot of saturated fat, you get a lot more heart disease. When you eat a lot of sugar and processed carbs, you get a lot more heart disease. When you reduce both of them, you get some real results. So now it's time for us to move to the next segment of our broadcast, where we're going to look at the microbiome with Dr. David Perlmutter on new discoveries about brain and gut health. Welcome to the Food Revolution Summit, where we explore how you can heal your body and your world with food. This is Ocean Robbins, and I am joined by my dad and colleague, John Robbins, in welcoming our guest, Dr. David Perlmutter. Dr. David Perlmutter is a world-renowned board-certified neurologist, a fellow of the American College of Nutrition, and co-founder and president of the Perlmutter Brain Foundation. He has helped to increase awareness of the critical role nutrition and lifestyle factors can play in the prevention of neurological disorders like Alzheimer's, depression, and ADHD. Dr. Perlmutter has received many awards for his innovative work in brain research, including the Humanitarian of the Year Award and the Linus Pauling Award. He's written 4 New York Times best-selling books, including Grain Brain and Brain Maker. So now, David, my dad and I are so grateful to you for your brilliant, innovative work, and so glad we have this time with you. And now for the interview, I'm going to hand it over to my dad, John Robbins.
Thank you, Ocean, and thank you, David, for being with us once again.
Well, thanks to both of you. I always very much look forward to our time together.
I do too. You know, in your book, Brain Maker, you tell us that new leading-edge science coming from the most respected institutions around the world is discovering that to a remarkable degree, brain health and brain diseases are in fact dictated by what is going on in the human gut. David, does this mean that what is taking place in our listeners' intestines in this very moment is playing a role in determining their risk for Alzheimer's disease and many neurological conditions?
It means exactly that. And this is a very big paradigm shift, I think, especially for people who are involved in the neurosciences, because, the action here appears to be outside the brain. It appears to be in the gut, as you well characterized. And we realize that, for example, when you ask the simple question, what makes a good brain go bad, we narrow that down to just a couple of fairly simple mechanisms, and by and large, the most important of which is inflammation. When we get our arms around that fact that our most dreaded brain degenerative conditions like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis are inflammatory in their nature, we ask ourselves, where does the inflammation come from? When we finally recognize that the set point of inflammation in the human body is actually the gut, then it really tends to focus the attention on what's going on within the gut as it relates to this fundamental mechanism, inflammation, the cornerstone of our most dreaded brain condition. So it's certainly a new paradigm for us, but I think is proving to be very empowering in terms of giving us a lot more tools moving forward.
We have co-evolved from the birth of our species with the microorganisms that live within our bodies. And now some of the leading scientists and researchers who are studying the human microbiome are saying that we're experiencing an extinction rate within our microbiomes that in some ways parallels the extinction gripping the planet. David, might the loss of microbial diversity in our microbiomes explain some of why we're suffering from rising rates of so many Western diseases?
I think it's quite likely, and I think that when we see the correlative studies that demonstrate reduction in diversity being associated with various metabolic issues like insulin resistance, like increased inflammation, weight gain, obesity, autoimmune issues with immune dysregulation, etc., all correlated with lower levels of diversity, you begin to say to yourself, well, it looks like having higher levels of diversity of the organisms within us seems to be associated with better health parameters and disease resistance. So, to answer the question, absolutely. And, as it relates to things, for example, like diabetes, where there's a strong correlation between less diversity of organisms and risk for type 2 diabetes, we ask ourselves, well, what are some of the lifestyle choices that people may be making that are associated with reduced diversity of the gut bacteria, and could those be associated with diabetes? And in fact, the answer is absolutely. For example, antibiotic exposure is strongly associated with both of those issues, with a decrease in diversity of the gut organisms and a dramatic increased risk for type 2 diabetes. So I'm going to repeat that antibiotic exposure is associated with a dramatically increased risk for type 2 diabetes, as was demonstrated in a study in Finland. Beyond that, and even more surprising, perhaps, is the fact that exposure to artificial sweeteners is associated with a higher risk for diabetes than even drinking sugar-sweetened beverages. And it's also associated with more weight gain. And we now believe that these associations are, in fact, a consequence of this loss of diversity of species within the gut. And you are absolutely correct that this is an extinguishment of species. We are experiencing extinction of gut-related organisms. What can be done to preserve those organisms? I think a lot of people are actually looking at that. We have a seed bank to preserve plant species up in the permafrost. One wonders if something could be done to preserve organisms that are going extinct as well, in hopes of being able to repopulate the gut with these good organisms at some point in the future.
When you mentioned antibiotics, I'm thinking about how ridding our bodies of nasty microorganisms has been a goal of medicine, at least since the invention of the microscope. And antibiotics may be the signature medical achievement of the 20th century. I mean, we have drugs like penicillin and streptomycin and others that have saved millions of lives. But in the process, germophobia has become big business. We have antibacterial and antimicrobial agents everywhere, and not just in cleaning products. Now, I've seen studies saying that people in countries that have less hygiene have greater microbial diversity in their microbiome, and most importantly, have a substantially lower incidence of Alzheimer's as a result. David, do these studies make sense to you, and do you consider them to be credible?
A, they make sense, and B, I believe that they are very, very credible. I think the study that you're referring to was performed by Dr. Elizabeth Fox, and what she did was she looked at markers of hygiene in 100 different countries around the world, measuring the degree of parasite load within individuals, and determined in those countries what was the prevalence of Alzheimer's disease, and found that in those countries that had the highest level of hygiene, the United States, Finland, various Scandinavian countries, they also had the highest level of Alzheimer's disease. Those countries that had lots of parasites, and as such, more microbial diversity, had much lower levels of Alzheimer's in those countries. I think it's a very good point, and that is that we've lived in this symbiotic relationship with our gut organisms for as long as we've walked this planet, and we've developed a relationship that's, by definition, mutually beneficial. Suddenly, when we change the playing field by getting rid of certain potentially pathogenic organisms, we allow other things to overgrow and change the balance, reduce the diversity. And this does seem to have a significant effect on two factors. Number one, the regulation of our immune system, and number two, the balance point of inflammation. Again, getting back to this cornerstone of brain degeneration. And I might add that it isn't just the relationship of inflammation to brain diseases that is concerning. We have to recognize that the inflammatory disorders include coronary artery disease, diabetes, and even cancer. Really, all of the chronic degenerative conditions that the World Health Organization now characterizes as the number one type of cause of death on the planet, these chronic degenerative conditions are inflammatory and, more importantly, are lifestyle related. They're related to the choices that we make primarily in our food choices, but also in other areas like the medications we take, the amount of sleep that we get, and the exercise that we do or do not participate in.
There are some very esteemed microbiome researchers today who are saying that we are now experiencing an incompatibility between our DNA, which has remained relatively stable over the course of human history, and our gut organisms. And they point specifically to our Western diets, which are low in the very plant fibers that are used as fuel by our gut bacteria. And they say that the lack of fiber in our diet results not just in fewer types of microbes, which is bad enough, but also in a decrease in the beneficial byproducts that our gut bacteria produce when they metabolize our food. David, if we're going to have a healthy microbiome, if we're going to have a flourishing and diverse collection of beneficial bacteria in our digestive tracts and elsewhere in our bodies, if we're going to lower our incidence of Western diseases, would you say that one of the central keys is to eat more plant fiber in our diets, and particularly prebiotic fiber?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, recognize that we as humans until quite recently would basically eat what we would find in the dirt or what we could kill. And most of that was a really high fiber plants in various states of decomposition, as well as flesh that we would find, or as mentioned, that we would kill. I think that we all grew up in a time where dietary fiber was thought to be this amorphous stuff that kind of helped bulk out the stool and would allow people to have good bowel movements. This fiber, as you correctly indicate, is nurturing the gut bacteria, not only to allow the good bacteria to replicate and to increase their numbers and crowd out perhaps some of the pathogenic bacteria, but more so to allow these good bacteria to create good metabolic products that allow us to survive. Things like B vitamins, vitamin K, things like metabolic signaling molecules that we call short-chain fatty acids that have effects throughout the body, reducing inflammation, shoring up the lining of the gut so we don't have increased inflammation by virtue of having a leaky gut, balancing our immune systems, helping to create the neurochemistry, the neurotransmitters that help determine our mood and how we perceive the world around us. So you're right. I think we really need to consider fiber, as an absolutely essential nutrient that, in my opinion, should rank as the other macronutrients and be listed as such. We're getting there, but I think it's just this ability to get your arms around the fundamental importance of this 100 trillion organisms that live within us in terms of regulating every aspect of our physiology, including our gene expression to some degree. What I said is that these organisms living within the gut are changing the expression of our DNA code moment to moment. So yet another reason that we've got to nurture these organisms. We say that when a woman is pregnant, she's got to be careful now because she's eating for two. Well, we're each eating for 100 trillion with every morsel of food we consume.
When you mentioned genetic risk, I know that some of us, and I am one such person, and I think you are too, have had or have currently a parent with Alzheimer's. We may, as a result of that, genetically be at heightened risk. Now, I've seen studies suggesting that if we are, the omega-3 fatty acid DHA can help counteract this increased risk. David, are you familiar with these studies? And if so, do you find them, once again, I want to ask, to be credible?
Am I familiar with the studies? Absolutely. And do I find them to be credible? Sure, I do. I believe the work, for example, of Dr. Martha Claire Morris at Rush University long ago, I think, made it very clear that there was a decreased risk of developing dementia in those individuals with the highest level of DHA. That was a couple of decades ago, and I think that research has stood the test of time and is very, very compelling. From a mechanistic perspective, we understand that DHA, this very important omega-3, which by and large is the reason people use fish oil or eat fish. There are vegetarian sources of DHA as well. But it's a very unique omega-3 in that it acts in multiple ways within the human body that are good for us. It acts as a natural anti-inflammatory. DHA is what we call a COX-2 inhibitor. And as such, it acts similar to various pharmaceuticals that have been developed. We also understand that DHA actually turns on the gene that manufactures a chemical in the body called BDNF that allows us to grow new brain cells. But I think, more importantly, the newer research on DHA that I think is even far more exciting has been carried out by Dr. Dale Bredesen, who wrote a very compelling book called The End of Alzheimer's. He wrote a study about DHA affecting what in the body are called specialized pro-resolving mediators. Now, this is kind of new science, but these SPMs are the body's way of dealing with inflammation. Inflammation, at its core, is actually a survival mechanism. We need to have inflammation as a mechanism to allow us to heal from injury, to wall off infected areas, to bring more blood supply to areas that need it if they've been damaged, etc. But it is the unbridled and unnecessary inflammation that is by and large induced by dietary indiscretions that leads to harm. But again, we have a mechanism in the body, and it's these specialized pro-resolving mediators that turn inflammation off once it's gone unchecked, and we can enhance this ability, again, by using DHA. So again, there are fish sources of DHA, there are vegetarian sources derived from algae, and I think it's important just to mention, and I often ask professional audiences when I lecture this question, and that is, what is the richest source of DHA in nature? And I hear anchovy oil, salmon oil, cod liver oil, etc. The right answer is actually human breast milk. And, you have to ask yourself, well, when is this happening? When is this whole interaction happening? When, obviously when a baby is growing a brain, that baby is exposed to the richest source of DHA in nature, and that is human breast milk.
And the human brain is composed to a large extent of DHA.
That's correct. And beyond that, the dry weight of the human brain is about 70% fat. You build your brain from the fats that you consume. It's not as if they just come from the air. So, again, another argument in favor of keeping good levels of healthy dietary fats on the table. But when I say that, I think it's really important to be specific and recognize that there are plenty of bad fats out there that are more harm than good.
You mentioned that there are some bad fats out there, and they are pretty ubiquitous in our food supply today. What would you say are the fats to be avoided?
I think that, by and large, the vegetable oils that people will see on their grocery store shelves that may have been there for years and years, so they're modified in such a way to extend their shelf life. The safflower, corn oil, sunflower oil, these are oils that you definitely want to avoid because they're they're working against you from the perspective of inflammation. So, again, it's all about reducing inflammation. These oils that I've mentioned are higher in the omega-6s. They're involved in increasing inflammation. They don't have in them some of the good types of monounsaturated fats that you'll get in things like olive oil, and certainly avocado oil. So we've really got to avoid them. And I think, more recently, we've been seeing a lot of people kind of gravitating towards the use of canola oil, and I think that's a huge mistake as well. More than 90% of canola oil is, in fact, genetically modified. So I think you've got to be a very discerning consumer as it relates to the types of oils that you consume. And I think no place might be more obvious than in a restaurant when you ask for olive oil to put on your meal. I'd say at least here in America, most likely that's not olive oil. Most likely it's some modified oil with maybe a little olive oil in it. But, by and large, I think consumers are not getting what they think they are.
When you mentioned canola oil and most of it being genetically engineered, it's true. And nearly all the soybeans and the corn grown in the United States today, in fact, most of the corn and soy grown worldwide, have also been genetically engineered by Monsanto to withstand a particular herbicide that, not coincidentally, the company also sells, Roundup. Now, the primary active ingredient in Roundup, glyphosate, has been called by the World Health Organization a probable carcinogen. Research has been showing that glyphosate is an endocrine disruptor, meaning that it interferes with the proper functioning and production of hormones. But there's another problem with glyphosate that has received very little attention. We were talking about antibiotics a few minutes ago. Well, the weed killer has actually been patented by Monsanto as an antibiotic. And what I want to ask you, David, is does this mean that this chemical, glyphosate, millions of tons of which have been applied directly to food crops destined for human consumption, may disrupt and kill beneficial bacteria in our guts, leading to impaired immune function and to a cascade of other ill effects?
The answer is yes. And it is true that glyphosate was in fact patented by Monsanto as an antibiotic. So it does act to disrupt bacteria, though we were told as consumers it did not disrupt bacteria. Dr. Stephanie Seneff at MIT, I think, has done a lot of the work to make that information known. And we understand that, glyphosate acts in what is called the shikimate pathway, which we don't have. It's a 7-step pathway that has to do with changing amino acids into other chemicals. Humans apparently don't have that, but bacteria do. Well, we're 10 times more bacteria than we are human cells. If we recognize the importance of bacteria in the gut, then anything we do in our lives to threaten those bacteria is something we need to pay attention to. And you are absolutely correct that glyphosate is a disruptor of the human microbiome, again, as Dr. Seneff has made so very, very clear to us. So, it is beyond the fact that genetically modified seeds are created in such a way as to make them what is called Roundup resistant, allowing farmers to spray the corn, to spray the soybeans, etc. Even wheat, which is generally not genetically modified, is still sprayed with glyphosate here in America as a desiccating or drying agent, meaning that even wheat contains residues of glyphosate. There was an interesting study that was published recently in the Journal of the American Medical Association that demonstrated over the past 20 years a dramatic increase in the urinary excretion in humans in terms of the glyphosate content found in their urine. So it's definitely scary business. And I think that, the more people stand up, the more people are going to recognize that this is a huge health threat. To this day, we still see people in the neighborhood spraying the glyphosate on the driveways and on the sidewalks at our schools, and it's just very, very worrisome, that this is happening. And I praise you for bringing this message to public awareness. It's so very important. And again, the recent study that was put out in the Journal of the American Medical Association, and it's a study that was it was profound, and it showed that this is not just present, but increasing so dramatically in humans, and almost as if no one's paying attention. I mean, you're right. The World Health Organization did characterize it as a probable human cancer-causing agent or carcinogen. That was published in the Journal of The Lancet, arguably one of the most well-respected medical journals on the planet. They're telling us this stuff, but, it's so hard to go toe-to-toe with these enterprises.
It is, and I think from a consumer's point of view, it is very important if you can access it and if you can afford it to eat organic food, because, for example, as you mentioned, wheat, which is not, for the most part, genetically engineered itself, but it's sprayed with, increasingly today, if it's grown conventionally, it's increasingly sprayed as a desiccant at the end of the harvest time with Roundup, with glyphosate. And so in some ways, the only way you have of knowing that the food you're eating wasn't treated with glyphosate is to get organic food.
That's right. And, plenty of people make the argument that, organic food is better for you because it has more nutrients. Well, in the context or through the lens of this glyphosate discussion, we recognize that another thing that glyphosate does is it acts as a chelating agent. So it reduces the availability in food of things, for example, like magnesium. It also tends to inactivate vitamin D. It also tends to be an endocrine disruptor. So for these reasons, again, what is the cost of organic food if you amortize that over 30 years and you factor into that what is the cost of the illness that you may get if you're not eating as organically as you can? Am I saying that not eating organic food might be a risk for illness because of this contamination? You bet I am. I am absolutely on record as saying that. We vote with our wallets, and I believe that the more people who do their best and buy organic foods, the more we're going to see organic extend its range within the grocery store. It doesn't contain residues of glyphosate that will harm your microbiome, that will chelate good minerals, and that will inactivate, for example, vitamin D and be an immune dysregulator. So that's what you're not getting when you're buying foods and nutritional supplements that carry the organic and the non-GMO label.
One of the things that we're seeing in our health world today are ever-increasing Alzheimer's rates. People seem to be developing dementia earlier, dying of it more often. And as you referred to earlier, for all of its marvelous advances, modern medicine really has very little to offer when it comes to treating Alzheimer's. Billions of dollars have been invested in the attempt to develop a magic bullet cure, but to really no avail. And billions more continue to be invested with so far no sign at all of creating a viable treatment. And this, I find this intensely frustrating, honestly, because we know it's very well established in our most well-respected peer-reviewed journals that lifestyle choices do indeed play a powerfully important role in determining who does and who doesn't end up with Alzheimer's. And David, I imagine you share in this frustration to some extent, but it highlights to me how important your work is and how important the message you're sharing with us is.
Well, it is my life work, and it's my reason to be. I just recently had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C., and present a 2-hour lecture to the World Bank, and that was broadcast to 150 sites around the world, and it focused on exactly what you are talking about, because you did mention some of the economics that are involved in Alzheimer's disease, costing in healthcare costs right now $1 trillion. So that's greater than the market value of Google, greater than the market value of Apple. And, the statistics in moving forward, I think, are daunting, that this becomes epidemic while we're making great progress with respect to other degenerative conditions. We're absolutely getting further and further behind as it relates to Alzheimer's, with the billions of dollars being dedicated to the notion of developing that magic bullet that's going to cure this situation, all coming up empty-handed, regardless of what platform they are trying to leverage, whether it is to get rid of this sticky protein in the brain called beta amyloid or to increase the presence of a certain chemical called acetylcholine. Across the board, these medications have failed, and yet they're still available to neurologists to prescribe to patients, though they don't work. And having said that, in the journal Neurology, just very, very recently, a study was published called Practice Guideline Update Summary, Mild Cognitive Impairment. What it dealt with is, what should neurologists be doing if a patient has pre-Alzheimer's or pre-dementia, which is called mild cognitive impairment, which is clearly, by and large, a harbinger for further brain decline and ultimately a diagnosis of Alzheimer's. So the statement is, the question that was raised by this study is, what should mainstream neurologists be telling their patients to do if suddenly they come in and they're not firing on all cylinders? And I was overwhelmed because and impressed, because the conclusion of the study is one that indicates that the medications that have all been studied, and there was a whole page of them, do not work. And that the only thing that clinicians should recommend was regular exercise. They even went further. They said that clinicians may choose not to offer medications, but if they do offer them, they must let the patients know that these medications lack evidence, which means you can still prescribe medicines that don't work, provided you tell the families and the patient that there's no evidence to support that they work. So you still can satisfy your desire to write a prescription, which is what life is all about, I guess, for most doctors. But how wonderful that they concluded that the only thing that was effective in slowing brain decline and slowing degeneration was physical exercise. And that plays upon, the past decade of research, much of which was done at UCLA and the University of Pittsburgh, that demonstrated that those who regularly exercise may have as much as a 50% reduction in their risk for Alzheimer's disease, a disease for which there is no treatment. And that was published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. Pretty compelling. You can't put a patent on exercise so no one can own it, so no one can promote it, and put advertisements on the evening news that you should do this. But nonetheless, that's what our science is telling us.
Is aerobic exercise beneficial in reducing Alzheimer's risk because it stimulates the production of a hormone called brain-derived neurotrophic factor?
I'd say that's the party line, and it's certainly what makes me be comfortable with the, connecting these dots. So we've known, the epidemiologic studies have demonstrated for a couple of decades that those individuals who exercise more have, by and large, a lower risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. More recently, we've connected the dots between exercise turning on the gene in the DNA that makes BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and we recognize that BDNF stimulates the growth of new brain cells in the brain's memory center, which is the target of Alzheimer's disease. So the most recent study that indeed was published by Dr. Erickson and his group at UCLA demonstrates several things when people exercise. Number one, their BDNF level goes up. Number two, the size of their brain's memory center, the hippocampus, increases. And number three, their memory performance improves as well. So I think there's plenty of evidence here that exercise is the right thing to do, and that beyond that, we can explain various parts of the story and connect these dots, so it becomes a very believable story.
I've also seen evidence that there are certain supplements that contribute to increasing brain-derived neurotropic factor and can thus stimulate the growth of new brain cells, of neurogenesis. And I'm referring specifically to turmeric and to DHA that we were speaking about before, and to whole coffee fruit concentrate.
That's right. And, again, what you just said, I think, is some very exciting news, and that is that things we can take by mouth, like physical exercise, can change the expression of our life code. I mean, that's a lot to get your arms around, at least for people like myself who grew up at a time when our DNA was thought to be locked in a glass case and immutable. And now we're saying that getting some exercise, buying a new pair of sneakers, and going out for a walk is changing the expression of our DNA. Turmeric does it. DHA does it. Various other spices do it. Whole coffee fruit concentrate. What is that? Well, when you get your coffee beans, they're not beans. They're not legumes. They're the seed of the coffee fruit. And researchers were saying, people are extracting the seed and throwing out the fruit. Maybe there's something to the fruit that we haven't investigated. Let's take a look. And lo and behold, they found that the actual flesh of the coffee berry is powerful in terms of turning on these genes to increase BDNF in the human body. So researchers like Dr. Dale Bredesen, who wrote the book The End of Alzheimer's, have incorporated this whole coffee fruit concentrate into their protocols. We recommend it as well, and I think moving forward, we're going to see a lot more data and a lot more availability of things like that.
Well, Dale Bredesen is also a speaker in this summit, along with you. And I have very high regard for his work.
Me too.
Talking about coffee, pretty much everybody knows that the caffeine in coffee will augment mental function in the short term. And also that if you drink it too late in the day, it can interfere with sleep. Many of us love coffee, and many of us worry that maybe the long-term health effects of coffee is not so great. Now, I've seen evidence that coffee is actually good long-term for brain health, that it helps to fight off oxidative stress, and that it protects against neurodegenerative diseases. In fact, I saw a recent study that said that high levels of coffee consumption can be associated with up to a 65% reduction in the risk for dementia. David, what's your view of coffee?
I am going to have to plead on this one that my responses are a bit self-serving because I love coffee. But I think looking at the data, you are correct that there is evidence of reduction of dementia risk in coffee drinkers and tea drinkers for that matter. Again, we know that coffee similarly changes gene expression. It does to some small degree increase BDNF, but coffee does act on another pathway, which is called the NRF2 pathway, and as such activates within the body some very powerful antioxidant-producing genes. It helps with detoxification by amplifying the expression of the genes that help make something called glutathione. And also dramatically, when you activate the NRF2 pathway with coffee, you reduce inflammation.
We were talking about antibiotics before, and I meant to ask you this. I forgot, so I will now. Are there circumstances that you, David, would consider taking antibiotics?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Antibiotics are an incredible invention. My father would have died of bacterial endocarditis had it not been for penicillin. So there's an absolute time and a place. But I think that our CDC indicates that 40% of the antibiotics used in America are inappropriate or not necessary. We understand that 70% of the antibiotics produced in America actually go into raising cattle and chicken and fowl to make them fatter, which we know likely happens in humans as well. So I think that we are dramatically overusing antibiotics. You go to the doctor if you have a sniffle or a cough, and you will walk out of there with a prescription. And if you don't have that prescription in hand, you ask yourself, gee, why did I go? Well, that was a waste of time and money. So I think we live in a society where all germs are considered bad, and that antibiotics are the answer for every illness that we have. And nothing is further from the truth.
If you had some problem and a physician prescribed an antibiotic to you, what questions would you ask in order to determine if it was in fact a wise approach to take?
Well, first I'd ask what are we treating? And I know that sounds certainly beyond rhetorical. I would ask, what are we treating in terms of what would you feel is the most likely organism related to what my problem is? And, for example, if you have a sore throat or you have a cold or you have an ear infection, likely the organism is not even a bacterium. So that said, an antibiotic right off the bat is going to prove useless. Now, if it's a urinary infection, for example, which may in fact be bacterial, again, I think asking the question, doctor, what do you think is the most likely organism? The reason that's important, and you can test the urine to determine exactly, generally, what the organism is, because you want to try to get away of this notion of broad-spectrum antibiotics. We have, in oral form, broad-spectrum antibiotics today that are incredibly powerful, that kill everything in the neighborhood, not just the bug that might be giving you the problem. And it turns out that when you do that, you're actually creating fertile ground for worse problems, because a lot of the other bacteria would keep the good guys keep the bad guys in check. When you wipe things out, then a lot of times you get overgrowth of bacteria that may be minding their own business usually, but now suddenly have been set free and can go around the neighborhood and cause problems. By that I mean, as an example, we know that antibiotic exposure and, interestingly, exposure to other medications like acid-blocking drugs, because of how they change the balance of bacteria that live within the gut, suppress good bacteria and allow certain bad bacteria to grow, one of which is called Clostridium difficile, or C. diff, which kills today about 40,000 Americans. It's a devastating bacterial infection of the gut, as mentioned, killing a lot of Americans. And unfortunately, to this day, the mainstream accepted approach to dealing with C. diff is, guess what? More antibiotics. That is about 26% effective in eradicating C. diff and allowing people to realize a cure. Most of the time when people are given antibiotics, they require further and further treatment. In the face of the knowledge that what is called a fecal transplant is about 96% effective in eradicating C. diff and allowing people to go home. 500 hospitals in America are now approved to do what is called fecal microbial transplant, basically taking fecal material from a healthy person and instilling it into the gut of an individual with C. diff. It's the treatment of choice, and we're now seeing fecal transplant being used in other countries very aggressively and very successfully for a variety of other illnesses that are focused on the fact that there's been disruption of the gut bacteria.
What other illnesses is fecal transplantation being shown to be effective for?
In Amsterdam, Dr. Neudorp has first demonstrated, he was in fact the first to demonstrate that there are significant changes in the gut bacteria that we see in individuals with type 2 diabetes. He discovered that and said, I wonder if we could reestablish gut health. Might that have a role to play in the parameters of diabetes, the blood sugar, the insulin resistance, etc.? So he began doing fecal transplants to treat type 2 diabetes in humans and has been, with his published information, extremely successful at that. In fact, I heard him present his data at a series I attended at Harvard, and it's extremely compelling, and that's now been published. We're seeing FMT, or fecal microbial transplant, being used for autoimmune conditions of the gut with great success. And recently at the University of Arizona, a small study was published in which not only the gastrointestinal issues associated with autism, but the neurocognitive issues as well to some degree were reversed in children who received fecal microbial transplant, which is not, for me, it's not unexpected because I actually was treating patients using FMT or fecal microbial transplant with autism a decade ago and seeing good results with that. Why do we do that? We do that because the research demonstrates that the guts of these kids demonstrate significant changes in the organisms that live there that are very, very abnormal. The reasoning was, look, fecal microbial transplant isn't going to hurt anybody. Let's give it a try. Could we reprogram the gut, and could that cause an improvement? And lo and behold, we observed it, and now that's been proven in a very powerful trial that was recently published.
When you're describing these beneficial results from fecal transplants, it highlights for me the importance of what you're talking about across the board. I mean, we do have a hidden world inside us that determines a great deal about our health and well-being. The medical profession and most of us have up until very recently been completely unaware of this. But David, you're helping us awaken to the remarkable importance of our inner garden, our microbiome, our gut bacteria. And it's a delight to realize that most bacteria are not our enemy, but in fact are essential allies in creating vibrant health. It's such an important message that you're bringing. It's always a real pleasure for me to learn from your knowledge and your compassion. And David, on behalf of myself and of Ocean and everyone involved in the Food Revolution Network, I thank you for your extraordinary work and for being with us today.
Well, let me thank you for that closure and also just express my gratitude for what you're doing and what Ocean is doing, and that is creating this venue to allow people to become more enriched, more empowered, and really allowing people to make better decisions from a better knowledge base. Because they may not get that on the evening news. They're certainly not going to get it in terms of advertising that they read. So God bless you for doing that. And that the word doctor does not mean healer; it means teacher. So that's an honorary degree for all you guys.
We've been talking with neurologist Dr. David Perlmutter, co-founder and president of the Perlmutter Brain Foundation, and best-selling author of numerous books, including Brain Maker, The Power of Gut Microbes to Heal and Protect Your Brain for Life. David, your research and your leadership in understanding the microbiome and bacteriological diversity is helping all of us to move towards healthier guts, healthier brains, and healthier lives. And we are so grateful for your leading-edge research and for your partnership in the food revolution.
Well, again, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much to Dr. David Perlmutter and to my dad and colleague, John Robbins, for that incredibly informative and fascinating conversation. To express your opinions on what you've been hearing and to find out what other people are saying, post and engage in the comments section on our broadcast page. Make sure to refresh those comments so you can see the most recent ones that have been shared. Our next presentation will be an interview with Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine founding president, Dr. Neal Barnard. It will start at the top of the hour in approximately 12 minutes. And now I want to respond to some of the comments and questions that we've been receiving. Kathy Raybould said, I love listening to David. So interesting. And he tells us so we can understand. One of the things I love most about this summit is the questions and input from John. Again, thank you, John and Ocean, for doing what you do so well. Yes, absolutely. We are truly so grateful for the incredible presenters we have in this summit, and I love getting to work with my dad in this. And You think he does ask some pretty brilliant questions. So thank you so much for tuning in and taking in this wisdom and participating and putting it into action. We heard from Anjay Lubak, who said, I am so glad to be able to hear this summit live today. I have learned so much in the past days and feel empowered in the way I eat. I'm on a plant-based diet since 2 months now, and no one in my family wants to join me, even though I lost a lot of weight and gained so much energy. All my brain fog is gone too. Well, Aunt Jay, we want to support you on your path. I'm sorry you don't have family joining you. Maybe they will in time as they get used to the direction you're taking and realize how good it is for you. But the first step obviously starts with you, and that's what leadership is, right? Is doing what's right, whether or not people around us support us. And then in time, we shift the context and the conversation. And we want to support you on that path. So we're actually going to give you an empowerment package. Our team will follow up with you. Congratulations. I hope you're able to apply it. Now you don't have to worry about missing anything. And you'll have the summit with you for life, all the MP3s and all the transcripts and all the bonuses. We'll be in touch on that. We heard from Casinos Norbert, who said, thank you for all this important information. It should be heard by all and studied in schools, so all should learn how to eat, live, and thrive. I listened to the Food Revolution Summit for the first time in 2017, and it really made a difference for me. I reduced my body weight from 133 kilograms to 85 kilograms in 9 months, and all my health issues are mostly solved. So I truly thank you. How wonderful, Casinos. We are so glad that you experienced this dramatic drop in excess weight and that you're feeling so well. Congratulations, and I hope that this summit helps you take it even further and sustain it and deepen it for life. We have received a lot of questions about coconut oil, and I want to go ahead and respond to those now. Coconut oil is one of our most controversial foods today. Some people say it's a menace. They point out that coconut oil is the most concentrated source of saturated fat in the human food supply, more highly saturated even than lard or butter. They say that coconut oil raises your LDL, or bad cholesterol, that it clogs your arteries with plaque, and that it increases your risk of heart disease. The American Heart Association officially advises against the use of coconut oil. On the other hand, coconut oil advocates tell us that it's been found to promote weight loss, that it can help to fight Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia, diabetes, digestive disturbances, heart disease, high blood pressure, herpes, kidney disease, Parkinson's disease, and just about any other serious condition faced by humans. This controversy can get very intense. You won't find complete agreement even among the speakers in this summit or even today's speakers. Dr. Joel Kahn doesn't think coconut oil is beneficial, but Dr. David Perlmutter does think it is. I think this is one of those cases where you need to listen to your body and observe how you respond to coconut oil if you use it. I'll say that in those parts of the world where coconut has been the principal source of dietary fat and a key part of people's diets, the rates of chronic disease, including coronary artery disease, have often been low. But keep in mind, there is a big difference between coconut and coconut oil. Many of the compounds in coconut and coconut products that are responsible for its health benefits, like its flavonoids, its antioxidants, its sterols, its stanols, and its phytochemicals, may be significantly reduced or even eliminated in the manufacture of coconut oil. Eating coconut butter, coconut cream, or coconut milk provides a host of nutrients that are not found in pure coconut oil. And there are also different forms of coconut oil. Refined coconut oil has been bleached and deodorized. Sodium hydroxide has often been added in order to prolong the shelf life. Chemical solvents are used to extract the oil. Compared to virgin coconut oil, it's a far more processed and probably a less nutritious product. My take personally is that coconut products, including mature coconut meat, young coconut meat, coconut milk, coconut cream, even coconut water, can be part of a healthy diet. I think of virgin coconut oil as a wonderfully fragrant and delicious processed food with a low nutrient to calorie ratio. Personally, I don't view it as a health food, but I do include modest amounts of it in my diet. and I do enjoy it. And again, listen to your body and see what works for you and what makes sense to you. We heard from Ellen McGawi, who said, John Robbins is an excellent interviewer. I hope someone brings up soaking seeds, nuts, grains, and of course beans, and sprouting them if possible, which increases assimilated nutrients and easier digestion. Well, thank you, Ellen. It seems to me that you just did bring this up, and I want to appreciate you for doing so. The first thing to recognize here is that nuts, seeds, legumes, and grains are actually all seeds in a sense, in that many of them could literally be planted and turn into new life. When you soak them overnight and then drain and rinse them a couple times a day for a few days, many of them will not only absorb water, but they'll actually develop little tails and begin to sprout. And this process can make their nutrients more bioavailable and in many cases make them more easily digestible. Nuts have phytates and tannins in them that can cause gas or bloating for some people, and if you ever find that happening, you may want to scale back to a serving size that works for you, but you may also find that soaking or sprouting them for a couple days and then storing them in the fridge will make them easier to digest and relieve those problems. So with nuts, I'm talking about you can soak and even sprout almonds, pecans, pistachios, hazelnuts, walnuts, Brazil nuts, macadamias, and of course with legumes and with grains, you can soak and sprout them too, and in many cases get wonderful benefits. We heard from Jill St. John, who said, thank you for gathering such a great variety of experts. I've done a great deal of reading and I've been confused by all the conflicting information, including from some of my doctors. I'm wanting to eat a more plant-based diet, and this summit is encouraging me to make the change. Well, thank you, Jill. Yes, there is a lot of confusion out there because everybody's got an opinion. That doesn't mean everyone's right, but there are a lot of opinions out there, and you can find on the internet, you can find persuasive-looking articles promoting just about any dietary pattern under the sun. But at the end of the day, I do think that there is an overwhelming body of consensus developing among serious scientists about some very major things, like that we need to eat more real whole foods, less animal products, less processed foods, less sugars, more plant foods, more vegetables, more fruits. And as we step in these directions, and I would add legumes too to the list of things that most serious researchers know we need to eat more of, as we step in these directions, we achieve considerable, consistent, predictable, and profound results. I want to congratulate everybody participating right now, and I want to thank you so much for your attention on this topic, and I want you to know you are a part of more than 325,000 people in this summit, and a global movement of millions more who are saying enough is enough to confusion, to toxic food, and to the status quo. It's time to make a change, and we are part of that change, and we are living that change. And I want to congratulate all the people who are getting the empowerment package to be more deeply informed and own this information for life, and also to support our mission, including Tom from North Carolina, Mary Beth from Colorado, Melinda from Oregon, Lori from Texas, Keena from Canada, Peg from Vermont, David from Alaska, Mariana from New York, and Heather from Iowa. Congratulations to all of you and everyone else who is stepping forward and getting informed. We heard from Vicki Nelson, who said, last year I stumbled across an ad for the Food Revolution Summit, and my world shifted. At 64 years of age, I wanted to enter my golden years with hope, and I realized I felt hopeless. I listened raptly to every speaker, cried a lot with happiness and relief, and changed my life. 1 year later, 30 pounds lighter, I have released all processed sugar, added colorful fruits and vegetables to my diet, added good fats, and focused attention on supporting my gut. I still struggle with giving up meat, and though I hear the absolutely convincing data, I realize I am up against 65 years of solid Midwest meat and vegetable dietary programming. I thank you for all you do to gently lead me back to my personal empowerment. Your kind, loving words and energy speak directly to those deeply held patterns and beliefs in my soul, and continue to assist me in examining my choices and patterns so I can make more uplifting choices. I think we should all have the week off so we can listen and absorb these wonderful speakers and their vital information. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, Vicki, I'm touched by your journey and by your application of what you're learning, and I agree. This is information that everybody deserves. You know, we all want to live. We all want healthy bodies that work. We all want minds that are clear. And we all want a livable planet. And we know so much now about how we can put those visions and dreams and aspirations into action in our lives. So I thank you for getting informed, and I invite you and encourage you to own this information and to spread this knowledge to everybody you love. Because what better gift is there to give someone you love than the gift of knowledge that can support them on the path to health? In a moment, it's going to be time for us to move to the next segment of our broadcast, an interview with Barnard Medical Center founder Dr. Neal Barnard on what you need to know about dairy. But first, we're going to take a minute to tell you more about the Food Revolution Summit Empowerment Package. At Food Revolution Network, our mission is healthy, ethical, and sustainable food for everyone who eats. We want kids to learn about healthy food in school. We want doctors to learn how nutrition impacts health in medical school. We want the routine use of antibiotics banned from factory farms. We want a world where everyone, regardless of their ethnic or economic background, has knowledge of and access to healthy food for their family. We want a world in which heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, obesity, and diabetes are rare, and in which vibrant health is the status quo. We're spreading the word and standing for change. And with every empowerment package purchased, we make a donation to Trees for the Future, enabling them to plant an organic fruit or nut tree in a low-income community. Join this movement and support this mission. Welcome to the Food Revolution Summit, where we explore how you can heal your body and your world with food. This is Ocean Robbins, and I am joined by my dad and colleague, John Robbins, in welcoming our guest, Dr. Neal Barnard. Dr. Barnard is a leader in nutrition and research, a best-selling author, and an adjunct associate professor of medicine at the George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Sciences. He's founder and president of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine and is the author of more than 70 scientific publications as well as 18 books, including the New York Times bestseller Power Foods for the Brain and his latest, Dr. Neal Barnard's Cookbook for Reversing Diabetes. Dr. Barnard has been a frequent guest on Dr. Oz, Ellen, and many other talk shows, and he's the only person who's been a speaker in every Food Revolution Summit we've held so far. So now, Dr. Barnard, my dad and I love your work, and we're so grateful for this time with you. And now for the interview, I'm going to hand it over to my dad, John Robbins.
Well, thank you, Ocean. And thank you, Neal, for being with us again.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Ocean. It's great to be talking with you again.
I want to start by asking you something that I don't think you as a physician too often get asked, which is this. What do you enjoy most about what you do? I mean, what is it about your work that makes you feel most alive and grateful?
Well, that's a nice question. There's lots of possible answers. From day to day, we're involved in research studies. And when you do a study, it's not just a bunch of statistics and things. There are real people in there. So we bring in people to our offices. They might have diabetes or weight problems or chronic pain. And you see before your eyes these things changing day by day and week by week. And that's an amazing thing to see. But I have to say, here at the Physicians Committee, we're always focused on the bigger picture. And so when we see large groups of people changing their diets, learning about the power of plant-based eating, that kind of thing, changing policies, those are the things that we're really looking for the most.
Are there any things on the horizon that you are looking forward to?
Oh, my God. Yes. A couple of really biggish kinds of things. One is, I guess everybody knows you go into a hospital and maybe a person has had a heart attack or a scare, and they wake up in the morning and they're served all the worst foods, but by worst I mean most unhealthful foods, bacon, eggs, sausage, all the things that got them into the hospital in the first place. And this past year, we worked with the American Medical Association to get a new set of guidelines for hospitals so that they are going to have to serve healthier foods. And what they meant specifically was have vegan meals in the hospitals, front and center for everybody, patients, visitors, staff, and then also to get rid of certain foods altogether. There are still going to be some things that you and I wouldn't eat, but they said certain things have to be simply gone, and that is sausage, bacon, ham, hot dogs, deli slices, all the processed meats that are linked to cancer. They wanted those out of cafeteria, out of the patient menus, and so forth. So where we are now, the AMA passed that. And now, over the next year or so, we are working with individual hospitals and hospital chains to implement this. And wouldn't it be great if hospitals actually model healthy eating? That's one thing. And then also, we are working on the SNAP program that used to be called food stamps, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, so that if you're down in your luck and you need some help, up until now it's been a lot of unhealthy foods included in SNAP, sodas and energy drinks and cheese and meat and everything else. And we are trying to focus it on healthy foods alone. That's a huge political battle, but I am hopeful that we can make some progress there. And that would be great because right now the poorest people, economically poorest people, are the ones at the highest risk of diabetes, obesity, all kinds of things. And if we can help them to have healthier foods and prevent these problems, that would be great. So those are a couple things on my desk right now.
I know of some programs where people who use SNAP dollars, the support they get from the program, they get double the value if they get fruits and vegetables with those dollars. Yes,
and those programs work. They if you incentivize the purchase of healthful foods, people will go there. And the changes they make are not huge, but they do it. But the dietary quality is better. In other words, people are in fact eating more vegetables, more fruits. We want to go a couple steps further and really get the bad stuff out of the diet completely and focus on healthy foods. So if I'm going to bring my SNAP card to the grocery store, it'll buy vegetables and fruits and whole grains and beans, but it's not going to buy cheese or meat or soda or other unhealthy things. And there's lots of controversy about this, but this is the program that we think is the most sensible.
When you're talking about getting the bad foods out of the hospitals and getting the worst foods off of the SNAP program, I'm thinking of how the something that really bothers me, frankly, in the food world, and that is that the food companies have created so many bad products. They've engineered and they've marketed food products with what they call enhanced craveability quotients, which is a fascinating phrase. To me, what it actually means is that they've worked very hard and they've spent enormous sums to make their food as addictive as possible. And what bothers me about this in particular is that there's a lot of people who feel that their food addiction, their food cravings, are some kind of moral failing on their part. It's their fault. And I don't think that's true at all. I think it's the result of food science being used by big food companies to hook people and to exploit the fact that some of us are more susceptible than others, and all of us are susceptible to some degree. So, Neal, how do you see that?
I'm so glad you put it that way, John, because I completely agree with what you said. People do get hooked on foods. They do blame themselves, just as you said, or they blame their parents or their upbringing or the stress they're under or whatever it is. And they'll say, I have an addictive personality. Well, the fact of the matter is, if you look out at any audience that you may be lecturing to, and you could say, how many in this audience have ever felt that they were sort of sugar addicted? In their heart, every single person is raising their hand. Or how many of you had a time when cheese just really called your name, or chocolate? These foods can addict anybody. You can have the world's best upbringing and be totally psychologically solid. You have companies of scientists working to find the exact right combination of cocoa butter and sugar that will make your dopamine receptors explode in your brain.
and they can hook absolutely anyone. And yet, not everything is addictive. People aren't binging on blueberries and bananas and oranges and apples. We like these foods, but you eat a sensible amount and you stop. But sugar, chocolate, cheese, meat, those are foods that people eat when they know they shouldn't. They eat quantities beyond what it takes to no longer be hungry. And the industry does exploit that. It's absolutely true. And unfortunately, industry's got a lot of money. And so to support this, they also fund research studies to try to prove that these things will not hurt you. And that's where it gets ugly, I have to say. And so our job is to try to counteract that and get the truth back into it.
University of Michigan researchers conducted a study in which they asked a large number of people which foods they found to be the most addictive. And I want to point out, they didn't ask which foods the participants liked the most. They asked which foods did they eat that they knew they shouldn't, which foods were seducing them and leaving them with regrets. And it turned out that many of the culprits were what you might expect, ice cream and cookies and chips. But the number one, the foremost problematic food was none of those. It was pizza. So, Neal, why do you think pizza topped the list of most addictive foods?
Well, I don't think it's the olives. I don't think it's the sun-dried tomatoes. And I'm going to say it's not even the crust. I am going to say it is that hot, melted, yellow asphalt that dribbles off the crust onto your fingers, into your lap. People get hooked on cheese. They really do. And a century ago, people didn't eat that much of it. But we were making up for lost time. And I recently calculated the average American eats 65,000 calories worth of cheese every single year. And I think it's, although it's something we don't think about, I think it's one of the biggest reasons for obesity. So people do crave it. It's salty, it's greasy, and that combination tends to be addictive, but it also has opiates in it. And that's I think what's really happening in the brain is that the opiates, the dairy opiates which are concentrated in cheese, tend to call our name really strongly.
Well, when you talk about the opiates in cheese, I want to provide some context for our listeners. If you look under a microscope at a protein molecule, you'll see a long string of beads, and each of those beads is an amino acid. When you digest foods that contain proteins, those beads, those individual amino acids come apart, and then they're absorbed into your bloodstream so your body can use them. Now, the dominant protein in cow's milk, which is used to make cheese, of course, is casein. And it's a very unusual protein in some respects. And it contains what are called casomorphins. Neal, what is it about casein that makes it unusual, and what are casomorphins?
Yeah, well, just what you said is exactly right, that a protein, any protein, is a string of amino acid beads, so to speak. And they, one by one, they come apart. But when the casein molecule in your stomach and in your small intestine, when it breaks apart, it does release some of these individual beads, but it also releases these little strings of 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 amino acids. And the chain, this tiny little chain, molecular chain, passes into the blood, it goes to the brain. And because of its molecular configuration, it can plant on the brain structures the opiate receptors of the brain called mu receptors, exactly the same receptors that heroin would attach to, or morphine or Demerol or any other narcotic. And they have a narcotic action. It's not super strong. The strongest of the casomorphins has about 1/10 the brain binding power compared to pure morphine, but it's more than enough for you to like the food and say, oh, I'm getting a nice effect from this. Incidentally, it's also enough to constipate you. You know, when people eat a lot of cheese, they often get constipated. When people have a narcotic painkiller, they get constipated. I'm going to argue it's the same thing. You're putting this narcotic down your digestive tract, and it slows down your intestinal movements. So the constipating effect of cheese is, I think, the same reason that we get high with it, so to speak.
Well, 1/10 the power of pure morphine is a lot, and not something to be disregarded. But why would nature put opiates, which is what we're talking about here, in milk?
It's a fascinating thing. Why would it do? Why would a calf who is suckling or a baby who's breastfeeding, why would nature want them to get a little dose of a narcotic? But it's an amazing thing. If you look at a breastfeeding baby, they are so intent, and then they collapse into sleep. And we assume this is the beauty of the mother-infant bond. Well, I hate to tell you, you just drugged the child with the casomorphins, because it's not only in cow's milk, it's also in human breast milk. Here's what I think is happening. Nature doesn't like to leave things to chance. So if the baby did not want to breastfeed, if the babies were not inclined to breastfeed, if a calf didn't want to nurse, they're not going to do well. So along with the protein and the sugars and the hormones and all the things that are in milk, there is that little bit of feel-good that calms the baby, that bonds the baby with mother, and that wouldn't be a problem if people got weaned. Like calves get weaned, animals all stop breastfeeding. But because human beings are so creative and this is dairy industry, you never have to get weaned, where we are giving ourselves this very faint narcotic hit every time we have dairy. And the problem then is that we get the fat and the cholesterol and the sodium and all the hormones and things that go along with it because we're hooked on it.
When you mention the hormones, most people don't realize this, but of course, most cows don't produce milk unless they are or have recently been pregnant. And so dairy farmers impregnate their cows every year. And this has consequences. At Penn State University, researchers there tested cow's milk samples for estrogens. They tested for estrone and estrone sulfate and estradiol and maybe some others. They found that the further along in pregnancy a cow was, the more the hormone content in her milk increased. And the difference was really dramatic. Over the course of pregnancy, the amount of estradiol, for example, in milk jumped 17-fold, and estrone rose 45-fold. I mean, these differences are so huge that you can actually analyze a pail of milk and know almost exactly how far along in her pregnancy the cow was when she produced that milk. So, Neal, does this mean then that when you or I or our listeners drink a glass of milk or eat a scoop of ice cream or eat some cheese, we're getting traces of bovine hormones that surge during a cow's pregnancy?
Yes, you are. And in fact, it's created a problem for the government because there are some farmers who inject bovine growth hormone. This is separate from what you're describing, but I'm going to circle back to it. Some farmers use bovine growth hormone injections to increase the milk production, and some farmers don't. And because consumers don't like the idea of injected hormones, the dairies that didn't use this extra hormone wanted to label their milk hormone-free. Well, the government said you can't do it. You can't label milk hormone-free because all milk has hormones in it. And it's the ones, John, that you were just describing. The cow is pregnant. All the dairy cows are pregnant for about 9 months out of every 12. And they're, as you said, they're impregnated every year. So every carton of milk that you get at the store, even the organic one that was not used, that did not have any injectable hormones, it has the hormones in it that come from the fact that the cow is pregnant. Does this affect our biology? We don't know, but we have reason to think it does. In a couple of ways, researchers looked at men. Specifically, they looked at men's sperm counts, sperm morphology, the shape of the sperm and how they moved. And they showed that the men who ate the most cheese had the poorest sperm counts and the worst sperm morphology and motility. And the reason why we're focusing on cheese here, there's a little bit of hormone in milk. But when you turn milk into cheese, you're concentrating the fat, and the hormones go with the fat. So if you want the biggest dose of bovine hormones that you can get, eat the cheese. And worse, in California, researchers looked at women who had been treated for breast cancer. And the more high-fat dairy products they ate, I'm thinking about butter, whole milk, and cheese, the more high-fat dairy products they ate, the higher the risk of dying of their breast cancer. And the risk was horrible. Those who consumed the most high-fat dairy had a 49% increased risk of dying of their cancer. And what we think is going on is it is, in fact, only a trace of hormone. But your body has all the hormones it needs. And if you add a little extra, for some people, this translates into the difference between life and death, between the difference of a hormone-related disease staying put or progressing. So they are only traces, but it's more than enough to get us worried.
Well, hormones, traces of hormones can be very, very significant. And, when you mentioned the impact on male sperm, I found myself thinking about the many guys today who have visible breast development. We know that the male breast gland will enlarge because of hormone imbalances. Neal, do we know if there's a correlation between this condition in men and the hormones in dairy products?
Yeah, there very likely is. And, hormones, there are many ways that our hormones are affected by foods. The direct one is the one that you and I have been talking about. There are female sex hormones in milk products. They are concentrated in the fatty products like cheese. And your average American guy is eating 35 pounds of cheese every single year. So if it's just a trace, but you're getting a trace every day or several times a day, we think it's enough to be worried about. The other thing, though, is when men gain weight or women gain weight, fat cells produce female sex hormones. And so that, in turn, causes the breast development in a man. And that's not just fat. It's actual breast tissue that the man is now developing. Of course, they think it's caused by soy or something like that, which it is not. It's caused by the hormones either produced in their body fat, or hormones that they're ingesting.
Well, when we're talking about hormones, Dean Ornish is a speaker in this summit, and he's, of course, famous for showing that a plant-strong diet as part of a healthy lifestyle can reverse heart disease, but he's also shown that it can reverse prostate cancer. And in another study that was published in the medical journal, The Prostate, very recently, researchers followed about 1,500 men, and they tracked dairy intake, and they tracked prostate cancer-related deaths and recurrences and treatments. What they found was that those men who consumed more than 4 servings of whole milk per week increased their risk of recurrence by 73% compared to the men who consumed fewer or no servings of milk. And they also found that this increased risk actually rose even more. It rose 3-fold in men with high BMIs, overweight guys. So, Neal, if a man wants to avoid prostate cancer, should he put down that glass of milk and add flax seeds to his diet? Would that be helpful?
You really, really, really do need to get away from dairy. And keep in mind, the dairy products, their whole biological purpose, if I can use that word, is to make a calf grow. Or human breast milk helps a baby to grow. And when you're an adult man, you don't want things to grow in your body, like cancer cells. You're just setting things up for it. In fact, you can even trace what's happening. The guy drinks the milk. In his blood, insulin-like growth factor number 1, IGF-1, you and I have talked about this in the past, IGF-1 levels rise significantly. IGF-1 is a potent stimulus for cancer cell growth. So all you need is one prostate cancer cell in that man's body, and the IGF-1 is like fertilizer on it. It causes it to divide and to spread. So yes, dairy products are things that you should set aside and never consume. The only exception is a breastfeeding baby needs milk from mom. That's really it.
Not baby calf growth fluid?
Right, exactly. You never needed milk from a cow, and nature continues to scratch your head when we talk about milk as natural.
I want to talk about cheese some more. You wrote this book, The Cheese Trap, that's so great. And I want to talk about salt for a moment. Our bodies need some salt. About 1.5 grams a day is generally considered the optimal amount. Our distant ancestors might have had a problem getting that much, unless they were living by the ocean, because other than that, salt wasn't so easy to come by. And it was the people who managed somehow to get their hands on some salt who were the more likely to survive under those conditions. And I've wondered, Neal, could this be why our neurological circuitry is set so sensitively to detect salt, and why we are or seem to be biologically programmed to eat it when we have the chance?
It is an interesting thing, John. I got to tell you, when I started digging into the cheese trap, and the whole reason I wrote this is we were doing research studies, and people would go on vegan diets, and they would do great. You know, their diabetes would go away, or they'd lose weight, or whatever. But for many of them, this cheese craving just would live on. And so part of it is the sodium part of it, that there's a lot of salt in cheese, and sodium triggers, a high sodium intake triggers the release of dopamine in the brain. And that makes you crave whatever elicited it. And there is some sodium in milk, but when you make cheese, you add bacterial cultures, and then as the cheese is being produced, they add extra sodium to stop the fermenting bacteria from going too far. And the amount, ounce per ounce, there's more salt in cheese than there is in potato chips. So it's very, very salty food, even though people, because of the sort of musty flavor of cheese, people don't necessarily think of it as salty, but there's a lot of it there, and your brain recognizes it.
So I think salt is added to foods, a lot
Yes.
of foods, that because of the addictive quality there and the effect on the brain. There's a lot of debate today about whether we consume too much salt, about what would be the optimum amount. But I've been impressed by the evidence that we do definitely consume too much salt. And I'm thinking now of a massive study that examined every single death in the United States that took place in the year 2012 and the dietary factors that were associated with those deaths. And that study was published last year in the Journal of the American Medical Association. And they found, this really major study found, that the number one peril in the country in terms of these deaths was excess salt intake. So what is it about consuming too much salt that is so harmful to us?
I think it's a couple of things. One is that salt itself raises blood pressure. High blood pressure punishes your heart and also sets you up for stroke. It's also harmful to the kidneys. So the salt itself has that effect. But the other thing is you add a little salt to foods, and people tend to overeat those foods. So if it's cheese that is salty, you're not only getting the salt, but the salt draws you in, along with the fattiness that draws you in. And what are you getting? You're getting this big cocktail that's not only high in salt, but also high in saturated fat that causes your cholesterol level to go up. There's a lot of cholesterol itself in it, and then you get the hormones. So the salt draws you in, but all the other aspects of the food can end up doing the damage.
It's too bad that these foods that are so tasty and so compelling to us are often damaging to us and have often been engineered to be that way, to be compelling to us. Hyper palatable is a phrase they use. They're extremely tasty, but they're extremely harmful at the same time.
Yeah. But you know, these things will change though too, and your custom will change them. I grew up in North Dakota, and the first time I was down, I think at the Atlanta airport, Atlanta, Georgia, deep south. I went into a Capitol cafeteria thing, and I wanted some green beans, but the green beans and the spinach both had big chunks of meat in it. I said, "What's that? Why would there be meat in the greens?" And they said, "Well, that's there to make it taste good." And I discovered that everybody in the South would kind of eat that way. But back in Fargo, we would never think of putting meat in the greens. And the point I'm making is people get used to these flavors. If you didn't grow up with it, or if you break the habit, you no longer crave it. So you grew up with high salt foods. When you break away from them, the foods will taste bland for a little while. Your taste will accommodate, and then you won't like the high salt version anymore. So it depends a lot on what you've been eating over the last 3-4 weeks, something like that. And you can reset your sensitivity for the fattiness in the foods, the saltiness, or the sweetness. All those things can be adjusted.
I had an experience very recently of what you're talking about. I eat a pretty low-salt diet, so I have some. But, and I get unsalted peanut butter when I buy it at the store. I was traveling, and I was in someone's home, and they wanted to feed me, and I wanted to accept if there was something I could eat there. And they had peanut butter, and it wasn't organic, but it didn't have any added hydrogenated fats. It didn't have any added sugar. It wasn't peanut butter and jelly mixed together like often is sold in our supermarkets. It seemed like it was just plain salted peanut butter. And I couldn't believe how salty it was. It tasted, to them, it tasted just normal. But to me, having been on a comparatively low salt diet for a while now, it tasted too salty. I actually didn't like it. And I think that's an example of what you're talking about.
Yes, exactly. And so many other aspects of the diet people will accommodate to. And what they're accommodating to is what they've been having just recently. So it doesn't take a long time for these things to change. And it can be nutrients like salt or sugar, but it can even be food. You've seen people who are totally phobic of tofu. They say, I'm going to draw the line at tofu. I'm never going to have that stuff. Then they have it. They're at some really nice Sichuan restaurant, and somebody cooks it up in this really elegant way. And suddenly, they're addicted to tofu. And this food that they were afraid of, now they crave. It's just a question of what you have been having lately. And when a person gets away, say, from meat, and they haven't had meat in a long time, or they haven't had cheese in a long time, you start to look back and think it seems strange to ever actually eat those things. And the beauty of this is that when a person goes to a healthy diet, you're doing a vegan diet, you're really having vegetables and fruits, at first it will seem kind of light. But as time goes on, your tastes adjust, your body adjusts, and you really end up loving the foods that you're eating. A little bit before our interview, I had a mango with some blueberries and some bananas, which I mixed together, and it's a snack. And it looks like it could be on the cover of a magazine. It's so beautiful and colorful. But I've come to the point where I actually just really look forward to eating these very simple, very healthy foods, whereas maybe in my childhood it would have had to be, the mixture of peanut butter and jelly on some white bread kind of thing with some potato chips on the side. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been happy.
Yeah, I remember when I was a child, I drank a lot of Coca-Cola and Pepsi and so forth, and I liked it. I thought it was terrific. I haven't drunk those things in decades, but I had a sip of Coca-Cola a couple of years ago, and it burned. I thought it was going to taste good because that was the memory I'd had from long ago, and it didn't taste good at all. It burned, whether it was too overly sweet or if there was some other ingredient in it that was unpleasant. I don't know, but I didn't like it. It was excessive, and it wasn't pleasant,
right.
And there was no draw for it to me.
But we also, as people are adjusting their tastes, their physical tastes, and the way the brain responds to the taste buds, something else has to change too, and that's that the patient or that we see, or the research participant, or the person in their day-to-day life has to be able to adjust their vision of what they can become and what can happen to them. In the same way, there are so many folks who think, I cannot ever be healthy. I'm always going to have this asthma. I'm always going to have these sniffles. I'm always going to have this extra 55 pounds of weight because that's my genes. That's the way I am. That's my personality, da-da-da. And to be able to adjust your thinking and say, no, it is true that our body has its own characteristics, and not everybody is going to be a gold medal Olympian and all that stuff. But it is astounding the power that you do have with changes in what you eat. And so it's really up to individuals to just explore it and see what foods will do for them, and not to cut themselves short, thinking that there's no way that I could ever be different. Because in the same way as your taste will change, your body will change based on the fuel that you're putting in it.
One of the most dramatic, large-scale examples of a change for the better that people thought couldn't happen took place in Finland in the late 70s. I'll tell the story a little bit. In the late 70s, the nation of Finland was in a kind of a health pickle. The Finnish people were consuming huge amounts of sodium, and as a result, the country had developed major issues with high blood pressure. And men in the eastern part of Finland in particular had the highest rate of cardiovascular disease in the world. And they did research, and they found that this plague was not a quirk of genetics. It was, in fact, due to what the Finnish people were eating. Now, the Finnish people were not keen on change, but they weren't content with this state of affairs either. And eventually, every single grocery item that was heavy in salt would be marked in the stores with the very prominent warning, high salt content in very big letters. Well, what happened was by 2007, Finland's per capita consumption of salt had dropped by a third. And this shift, along with some other dietary changes, was accompanied by, and here's the punchline, an 80% decline in the number of deaths from strokes and heart disease. Now, I find an 80% drop in deaths from heart disease and stroke to be just spectacular. Neal, can you give us any additional insight into what created this remarkable health improvement in Finland?
Well, I think you told the story as well as it could be. And it shows a couple of things. One is that food really does affect our risk. You know, there was a time when people thought having a stroke, having a heart attack is old age. You're old, you might have bad genes, that's what's going to happen to you. But the change that has really occurred in scientific thinking over the past couple of decades is that genes play a relatively small role for certain focused conditions, and that lifestyle is really the overriding consideration for cardiovascular disease, for certain forms of cancer, for diabetes, for weight problems, and high blood pressure, and so forth. The second thing, though, is that unlike the United States, where it seems very hard to do battle with the food industry because the government tends to defend them so much, in Finland, some of the other Scandinavian countries, it's really been wonderful to see the changes that they've been able to execute. And to me, that's very heartening. Change is possible. And it's not necessarily legislative change. It's you get a little bit of information into people's hands, a little bit of encouragement, and people can indeed take it from there.
Yeah, cultural change and personal change, the changes we make through the choices that we make individually, then ripple out and affect others. Eating is a very social act. I've seen studies that show that if your friends are overweight, you are very likely to be overweight. If your friends' friends are overweight, you are very likely to be overweight. So I think if your friends are eating healthfully, you are very likely to eat healthfully. We are affecting each other all the time in countless ways. And so the choices, the positive choices we make, the healthful choices we make ripple out and help others be healthy too.
When we do research studies, we try to use the social effect in a positive way. We're doing a study now where people have a lot of weight that they want to lose. And instead of sitting them down one by one, saying, here's your menu, do this, do that, they come in as a group. And we try to have between about 15 and 20 people in the group. That's kind of the magic size. You can use other sizes if you want, but if it's about that size, there's enough people there that they don't feel like they're under the microscope, but there's not so many that they don't get a chance to talk. And they meet every week, and it's amazing. Right about week 3 or 4, they are starting to feel empowered. Just as you were describing, where people kind of, their food habits rub off on each other, they are riffing off each other, they're solving each other's problems. Somebody will say, I've got a wedding I got to go to next week in South Carolina, what am I going to do? And the others will start solving it for them, and they get totally pumped up about getting healthy together. And this is also something that we do online. We have our online Kickstart program at PCRM. For the 3 weeks of this free Kickstart program, they are part of a group that's making a big diet change together. And somehow the power of working together as a group, it redefines our sense of what is a normal thing to eat, what are normal health goals that we can have, and it really puts that social power to work.
So if you're somebody you want to eat a healthful diet, you want to establish that as your pattern, you want to do it steadily over the long haul, but you're living with folks who aren't as into it as you are, and you want to help them be healthier, but you also want their support for the changes you want to make and the direction you want to go. What can a person in that type of situation do to enhance the social strengthen the ability to connect with the people in their life in a way that really supports their healthy eating path?
Great question. No, a lot of people are in exactly that situation. A few things. First of all, there's nothing like knowledge. Sometimes we assume other people will not change when they just don't really have the knowledge base. And so it's useful to share what you know, whether that's sharing a book or sharing a DVD or sharing your programs, frankly. John and Ocean, you've got more programs than anybody to really encourage people to change their lives. So anyway, you want to share the information. Then sometimes people will be a little reluctant, and I think that's not a bad thing. If people just went off and did anything that anybody ever recommended, they'd run into trouble. So a little conservatism in the making lifestyle changes is normal and is good. And so we shouldn't feel daunted by it. But when you want, let's say you've gone vegan and you wish your family was going to go vegan with you, what I often suggest is that after you've given them the reasons and maybe given them a book or something like that, ask them to join you for a short time. Like, will you do this with me for 3 weeks? Ah, sure. What the heck? I got a few pounds I could lose. Something like that. If it's a short-term thing, they might do it. If not, if they say no, then at least say to them, this is important to me, and I'd appreciate it if you sort of don't tempt me with other things, and please don't tease me for what I'm trying to do. And they'll say, of course we won't. We'll support you. Try to keep their tempting food on a different shelf of the refrigerator from yours. And by the way, if you give people a book, very important, and you say, I think if you read this, this will mean something to you, what you'll discover is that the book sits on the table and they never open it. And you can tell when a book hasn't been opened. So what you have to do is about 3 or 4 places in the book, put a Post-it note and say, I write on it, I thought of you when I read this chapter. And they are going to tear that book open and they are going to start reading it to try to figure out what it was in the book that reminded you of them. And then you can do the same thing with a DVD. If you've got Forks Over Knives or Eating You Alive or What the Health or whatever it might be, give them a little Post-it note on the DVD and say, I thought of you about 45 minutes into the program, and you'll see what I'm talking about. They will play that DVD over and over again to see what you were thinking of and how they figured into it. So that's just a way of getting them into it. And once they're in, they're going to really go along with it. So give them a little bit of information, trick them into reading it or watching the DVD if you need to. Ask them to join you. Keep the focus on the short term. If they will not do it, don't get discouraged, but try to keep your food separate so that you're not getting tempted. And over time, be patient. Sooner or later, you'd be surprised that people may join you.
Even if they just join you to support you out of their love for you and respect for your choices, they'll benefit and they may end up alongside you and may even at times end up ahead of you.
I have to tell you something. Here at the Physicians Committee, we have a couple of members who are just lovely people. They're in a family from the Midwest. And one of the daughters in the family went vegetarian at age 3, which I'd never heard of anybody that young. She twigged that they were eating animals, and she did not want to eat meat because it came from an animal. Anyway, so her diet drifted more and more over time, and then she ended up being vegan in, I guess, late adolescence or something. Her father, it's hard for a father to resonate with adolescent daughters. They don't know, they don't speak the same language and so forth. So he decided, in order to relate to his daughters, he would go vegan too. And this was just a way to be a good father and relate to them. Well, in the course of doing this, he got totally swept up into all the power that the diet had. And quite apart from the fact that he and his daughter had a better relationship, he just felt this was a real gift and ended up sticking with the diet. So it's amazing what sometimes family members can induce their other family members into doing.
It's beautiful when a family really comes together around healthier choices and connection. He really just wanted to connect with his daughter, wanted to have something in common, and which is a beautiful motivation. And it led to greater health for him, and I'm sure better family energy as well.
Yes, exactly. And what a great thing to do. And so I was always struck by that. And there are families like that where you'll have the child at the dinner table who sort of naively says, chicken. The chicken that we're eating, is that the same word as the chicken bird? And no, it's not a homonym, honey. That's what you actually are eating. And you hear about these kids who are horrified, and they are the smartest one at the dinner table. And it's so wonderful when the family, instead of making fun of them or forcing them, the family says, you're right about that. And they start thinking and they make changes themselves.
Well, sometimes parents appreciate the innocence of a child, that a child may identify with its pet or love its pet so much that when it thinks of an animal being eaten, it doesn't want to participate in that. But because it has to be killed, obviously, to be eaten. Um, but the parent may think, well, but the child needs this food for their health. And so maybe even reluctantly, they have to overrule the child's innocence and insist that they eat foods that they've been taught, that parents have been taught to believe are healthier. And one of the places where parents will get hooked a lot in this way, I think, is regarding dairy products and bone health. The dairy industry, of course, is telling us constantly that we need milk and cheese for our bone health. And certainly, milk products of all kinds are high in calcium. But somewhat counterintuitively, we have World Health statistics telling us that osteoporosis is most common in exactly those countries where dairy products are consumed in the largest quantities: the United States, Finland, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. So what does the science say, Neal? Do we need dairy products to have strong bones? And should parents be requiring their kids to drink 3 glasses of milk today, as the dietary guidelines insist?
Well, the first thing to realize, you do need calcium for your bones. You need a lot of things for healthy bones. Calcium is one of them. But cows do not make calcium. Calcium is in the soil. It's in the earth. And as green plants grow out of the soil, they carry calcium with them. And so the calcium ends up in the leaves, and the cow comes along and eats the grass, and the calcium enters the cow's body. And some of it ends up in the milk, and about a third of the calcium in milk is absorbed by you if you drink it. If instead you were to eat green vegetables yourself, not grass hopefully, but broccoli or kale or collards or Brussels sprouts or whatever, you're getting the calcium from the earth that is in their leaves, and that's the source. So this idea that you need dairy products for calcium, it's naive. The cow never made it. The cow just ate it, and then you're eating the parts from the cow. And when we look at children, at Penn State they did a nice research study finding that bone integrity in kids who consume no dairy or very little, their bone integrity is just as good as the kids who are drinking a lot of milk. So now there are things that do matter. Exercise matters. If you're not exercising, your bones are weaker. Exercise matters, and you do need to have a certain amount of calcium. You need vitamin D, which comes from the sunlight on your skin. If not, then you need a supplement. These things are all important, but no, you definitely don't need cow's milk or any kind of dairy products for healthy bones.
You know, I'm thinking still of the parents who want their kids to drink milk because they think their children will be healthier if they do. The Beverage Guidance Council, this is a group that was assembled to provide recommendations on the relative health and nutritional benefits and risks of various beverages. And the panel included some of the leading experts in nutrition in the world. This prestigious panel ended up ranking beverages on a 6-tier scale. And soda pop, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and so forth, to no one's surprise, ranked last. And water, simple, pure water, clean water, again, unsurprisingly, was the top-rated drink. But what I think might surprise some folks is that this prestigious beverage guidance panel ranked whole milk on the same low tier as beer, with a recommendation for 0 ounces a day. And yet, the federal government is still telling us to drink 3 glasses a day. Why does the Beverage Council recommend that we not drink milk at all? And do you agree with that recommendation?
Well, if you look at what's in milk, if it's whole milk, it's very high in fat. There's a very substantial amount of fat, and the primary fat in the dairy fat, in the milk fat, is saturated fat. That's the bad fat. Okay, we know that's bad, so we want to skim all that fat off. Now you're left with low-fat milk. The primary nutrient in low-fat milk or skim milk is sugar. It's lactose sugar. That's where let me be clear, the majority of the calories in skim milk are from sugar. And so people who are avoiding Coca-Cola and whatnot, if they turn to skim milk, it's biologically not dramatically different, except that the milk brings you, in addition, some cholesterol, some sodium, some hormones that actually weren't in the Coca-Cola or the beer. Now, the other thing about this is beer is linked to certain, not just beer, but alcoholic beverages in general are linked to certain cancers. If women consume more alcohol, they have a higher risk of breast cancer. Well, milk is linked to cancer too. As you mentioned earlier, prostate cancer, in actually quite a number of studies, prostate cancer is linked to dairy consumption. So it makes a great deal of sense for health advisors to caution against consuming milk at all after the age of weaning.
We were talking about the social side of food and eating and how important social support can be and how much we need it at times. I've made it a practice in my life. I drink a small amount of alcohol now and again, a glass of red wine here and there, a bottle of beer occasionally. I've never had a problem with alcohol abuse, just not made that way. But some people do. And whenever I'm around someone who is in AA or, was an alcoholic at one point in their life and is working to be sober, I won't drink at all around those folks under any circumstances, out of respect for their sober path, their path of sobriety, and out of respect for the damage that too much alcohol can do. And we see this, of course, in many ways in our society. I wonder about if we could, as a society, understand the importance of healthy eating and the addictive quality of these bad foods, and sort of form an agreement to support one another in not being addicted, in staying away from the foods that are so addictive and are so damaging.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is really the central issue here, is deciding together to help us. We are well aware that certain people have issues like alcohol, but what we tend to miss is that issues like this are much more widespread, albeit more subtle, than just, say, alcohol, where the person who is hooked on cheese, the guy who can't get away from meat or whatever, these are things in every household in this country and throughout much of the world. And if we were to collectively decide to support each other in breaking away from these things, it would really be a very, very different world. And by making this decision, I don't mean simply personally. I mean, the U.S. government ought to serve in schools helpful foods.
Yes.
Serve in hospitals helpful foods.
Yes.
So that we're not just individually supporting each other, we're supporting each other through broad policies.
And you mentioned earlier at the very beginning of our conversation about your work to help hospitals serve healthier food. And in so many ways, Neal, your work through Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, through your books, through your lectures, through the many ways you've been doing this for decades, has been a light to our world, to our culture, to our food revolution. And I want to thank you really from the bottom of my heart for all you've done over these decades, all you're continuing to do, all you will continue to do, I am sure. And also to thank you, of course, for being with us today.
Well, that's very nice of you to say, John, but I got to tell you, you're not going to remember this, but it was probably 30 some years ago. You and I were at the same conference and you spoke before me, and I was so awestruck by your message because it had to do not just with an individual, and you talked about your own family trajectory, which is amazing, and many people know about your family, of course, and your background, which is really something. But your vision about how our diet changes can affect us individually, how they can affect our families and our communities, and how they can affect this planet that we live on. So you have been an inspiration to me all this time, and Ocean is right there with you, really just changing the world. And so anyway, thank you. I am so grateful to you both for letting me be part of your program, and I hope to be able to continue to contribute in the future.
Well, we hope for that too. We really are all in this, inspiring each other, galvanizing each other, and supporting each other together. We've been talking here with Dr. Neal Barnard, founder and president of Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, founder of the Barnard Medical Center, and the best-selling author of 18 books, including his latest, Dr. Neal Barnard's cookbook for reversing diabetes. You know, Neal, you have spent decades studying the relationship between food and health, and your work is helping to shift the course of medicine. You're also empowering individuals all over the planet, and we want to thank you so much for your impeccable research, for sharing your critical insights with such lucidity, and for your partnership in the food revolution.
Well, glad to do it, and I look forward to much more collaboration in the future. There's lots more to do.
There sure is, and we'll keep doing it. Thank you so much to Dr. Neal Barnard and to my dad and colleague John Robbins for that lucid, empowering conversation. To express your opinions on what you've been hearing and to find out what others are saying, post and engage in the comments on the broadcast page. Make sure to refresh those comments so you can see the most recent ones. Mary Ann Dean said, "This is such a superb talk. Because I am fighting stage 4 breast cancer, my herbologist took me off dairy. I trust her, of course, but I now know from Dr. Barnard all the problems with cheese. It's interesting that on my almost completely vegan diet, I am allowed to eat wild-caught fish. The only thing I miss is cheese, so I must still be somewhat addicted to it, even after a year. I do not miss meat, alcohol, sugar, caffeine, or other dairy, which my mentor has removed from my diet. But cheese is the only thing I dream about. I guess it will take another year of no cheese for me to get over this one." Well, Marianne, maybe so, or maybe as you learn more and are more deeply informed, maybe your brain will start to shift some of the associations. You know, when we associate certain foods with pleasure or rewards, it can make it an awful lot harder for us to actually make changes, because at some level you're fighting against your brain's own reward systems. Of course, it isn't just the thoughts that affect the reward system. There's addiction and many other factors. And Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson in a couple days will be going over the science of food addiction in ways that I think you're going to find fascinating. So I hope you join in that one as well. But getting informed and shifting our brain associations is powerful. You know, how many of us curl up, watch TV, and say, I'm going to have some comfort food. I had a stressful day, so I'll have something, give myself a treat. And we often mean junk food. But if we were more honest, we might be saying, I'm going to curl up and eat something that's going to increase my likelihood of cancer, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, and then it would be a very different feeling. So let's take comfort as much as we can in foods that are really good for us so that we can love foods that love us back. We heard from Christina Picula, who said, Dr. Barnard's presentation is fascinating. I went dairy-free last year as guided by my naturopathic doctor. And I feel healthier than I have in my whole life. I'm also desperately trying to change my family's eating habits, especially because of my husband's poor health. It's very difficult as my husband doesn't want to give up all the food we're used to, and being a busy mom of 4 girls ages 6 and under, my time and energy to prepare new dishes is limited. I'm so grateful for this information and hoping I can continue to incorporate it into mine and my family's life. Yes, Christina, I get it. I hear you. My goodness, 4 girls, age 6 and under. Well, we all send our love to your whole family and appreciate you taking the time to get informed, because as you can obviously see, at the end of the day, they're all counting on you. You're the one who's learning right now, and you're the one who's going to get to share this with them in the ways that you can. At the end of the day, you don't control everything about what they think or how they eat, but you have a real influence, and that's ultimately what's in your domain. We heard from Sheila O'Hare, who asked, what about the elephant in the room, alcohol? Well, Sheila, alcohol is, by almost any measure, the most destructive drug on the planet. According to the World Health Organization, harmful use of alcohol results in deaths of 2.5 million people every year. And it can cause illness and injury to millions more. So in addition to being a cause of countless injuries and car accidents, alcohol abuse is a leading driver of cancer, cardiovascular disease, and liver cirrhosis. There's evidence that even moderate alcohol use may increase risk of breast cancer. Now, if you're someone who is not prone to alcoholism, and if you're generally in good health, you might be able to have a small amount of alcohol without consequence. As in most things, the dose determines the poison, and it is in many ways about volume. And if you're going to consume alcohol, red wine is probably your best option. Studies have shown that modest red wine consumption, like a glass or less per day, may be helpful in preventing dental cavities caused by damaging bacteria on the teeth. And it's been linked with decreased risk of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and it may help lower risk of depression and dementia. But I want to be clear here, this is probably more because of the red grapes than because of the alcohol. The skin of red grapes is particularly rich in an antioxidant called resveratrol, which is potent in fighting cancer. And it turns out that how grapes are grown matters too. Resveratrol is produced as a protectant against potential invaders like molds and fungi. When modern pesticides and fungicides are sprayed on red grapes, there is less resveratrol required to protect the plant, and so less might be produced. This is why resveratrol levels seem especially high in organically grown red grapes. There is a growing body of research which has found that eating red grapes or drinking red grape juice may provide many of the same benefits that have been famously associated with red wine, possibly even more, without the negatives of the alcohol. Personally, I enjoy red grape juice. I find it really sweet though, so I like to have it organic red grape juice mixed with some sparkling water for a kind of resveratrol infused soda. We heard from Mary Therese, who asked about fermented milk products like kefir and yogurt. Well, Mary, yogurt and kefir have some advantages compared to other dairy products, like cheese, for example, because they have little or no salt, and they are, of course, fermented, which can give you access to some beneficial bacteria. But the big danger with dairy kefir and dairy yogurt is that unless they're unsweetened, they tend to come with a huge amount of sugar, and as we all know, sugar is no health food. Personally, I love to make my own homemade soy milks and almond milks in a soy milk making machine, and then I ferment them into soy and almond yogurt. This is remarkably affordable. It's highly nutritious. It's loaded with beneficial bacteria, and frankly, it's delicious. We heard from Mary Colony, who asked, "My husband will rationalize his salt intake by using Himalayan salt. Can you comment? Is Himalayan salt less harmful, same, or better than regular salt?" Well, I know there are a lot of folks who are really excited about the minerals in some exotic forms of salt, and those minerals may have some value, but another issue here is that most of us can benefit from some supplementary iodine, and most commercial salts contain supplementary iodine. If you don't eat iodized salt, you probably want to get some form of iodine supplement into your life. And at the end of the day, I think you really want to be getting your minerals from your food more than from your salt. So if you're going to eat salt, and if you have another source of iodine, then Himalayan salt is probably a fine option. But don't be deceived. It's still salt, and salt is not, fundamentally for most of us, a health food. Colette Purcell said, I want to thank John and Ocean for all the work they're doing to bring us this information. Last year, as a result of the information provided in the summit, I became vegan. My husband somewhat jokingly said he thought my becoming vegan was grounds for divorce. He made it clear he thought it was stupid. After seeing my health improve over the first month, he joined me. Now he is mostly plant-powered, and I'm not divorced. Win-win. Well, Colette, thank you for sharing your story. And it's true, a lot of times loved ones, like all of us, can be attached to old habits and what's familiar. Change can be hard, especially when it doesn't originate from within. And we want to have compassion and respect for that and for everybody on their process and journey, and keep being leaders. And you never know who's going to follow, who's going to join us, who's going to be inspired by our example. We heard from Kim Lim, who said, thank you for sharing your invaluable knowledge, time, and hard work, and doing it for free. I'm currently in college retraining for a new career in the health industry, and the knowledge I've gained from your movement is like a pot of gold. I'm doing my best to take good notes. Well, Kim, you're not going to have to take notes anymore, because we're going to gift you with an empowerment package. So now you will own the entire summit, all of the MP3s, and all of the transcripts for life, along with more than $2,800 worth of bonuses. Our team will follow up with you. Congratulations. And congratulations also to all of our new recent Empowerment Package owners, including Susan from New York, Claudia from Washington, Jeannie from Connecticut, Patricia from Texas, Jalen from Utah, Stephanie from Maryland, Tara from Colorado, Florence from New Jersey, and Craig from Ontario, Canada. And congratulations to everybody else who's getting informed and stepping forward and getting inspired and empowered right here and right now. And now it is time for our revolutionary recipe of the day with chef extraordinaire Karen Hartglass. Karen is co-host with my dad and I of our wildly popular online course Plant Powered and Thriving, which focuses on implementation, on making all that we're learning here something you can deliciously practice in your life. And on each day of the summit, she introduces a recipe of the day. So for today's recipe of the day, I'm going to hand it to Karen.
Hi, everyone. We are hearing a lot about the health benefits of turmeric in this summit. Dr. Kahn said today that there are 300 active chemicals in turmeric spice, with one being curcumin, a superpower anti-inflammatory. Today's recipe is a new spin on a classic comfort food, and it comes with a yummy sauce that features turmeric. Millet croquettes with red pepper turmeric dressing. Croquettes are typically fried. In this recipe, millet, a gluten-free whole grain, is toasted and cooked. Then it's mixed with onions, carrots, parsley, and pumpkin or sunflower seeds. Next, it's shaped into patties and baked, not fried. While the croquettes bake, you can blend up the colorful dressing with fresh turmeric, red bell peppers, lemon juice, and tahini. This dish is fun to make and fun to eat. You'll have plenty of dressing left over to toss with salad or to use as a dip with carrot and celery sticks. These millet croquettes are very versatile. You can serve them for breakfast, for lunch, for a snack, or for dinner. And they make a tasty travel food too. You can eat them on the run or on the road. This is a delicately flavored dish. For those of you who like your food hot and spicy, I'll be back tomorrow with something for you on day 6 of the Food Revolution Summit.
Well, thank you so much to Karen for making healthy eating so delicious and accessible to all of us. We heard from Monica Facone, who said, a friend recommended I check out this summit. I'm amazed how little I know. I'm a little overwhelmed with all the information, but look forward to starting a new journey. Where does a beginner like myself start, especially incorporating a plant-based diet? Well, Monica, the best place to start is from where you are, and you look at where you are, and you look at where you want to go, and you put one foot in front of the other, and you keep on moving. Some steps you might want to take as you're setting out on the path would be eliminate the worst offenders. Look at your kitchen and your food life and identify what are 3 foods that you know you shouldn't be eating anymore, and get rid of them. Just cold turkey, so to speak. You can make a shopping list of healthy foods you want to stock and incorporate into your life. You can also stick with your shopping list, so you're making conscious choices so that you don't buy off the list. You don't go with impulse purchases. You only make conscious choices that you thought about in a moment of sobriety. You can also get a good cookbook that offers a healthy plant-based foods and commit to trying a couple new recipes every week. Everybody who gets the Food Revolution Summit Empowerment Package has the option to upgrade to the Food Revolution Family Cookbook for another $10. A lot of people are taking advantage of that. It's quite popular. And that's a collection of some of our favorite recipes and recipes from a lot of our presenters in this summit. But you can also get cookbooks of all sorts and kinds, and look for high review scores on Amazon. You can also connect with kindred spirits. I suggest you find or enroll loved ones or colleagues who might be interested in sharing recipes or the journey with you in some way. It's harder to do it alone. It can be done, but finding some kindred spirits really helps. You can even ask around, find out where there's local potlucks or gatherings, or host one yourself. Invite friends over to watch Forks Over Knives or some other inspiring film. Just a few people can get it going. You really only need 1 or 2 good friends, and it will make you feel a lot more supported in the journey. You also may want to sign up for Plant Powered and Thriving. There's a link to that course from our broadcast page, and there's an early bird discount for summit participants. So that is a resource you may find of value. We created it specifically for people of all eating levels to step forward, to find more community, and to help take the stress out of healthy eating. so that you can be more informed and masterful while also saving time and saving money and enjoying connection with kindred spirits. So that's a resource you may find useful. And most of all, I want to thank you for being here and for learning and for growing and for stepping forward, because this is how the world changes. Every single one of us, every choice we make helps shift the course of history. So here we are, approaching the end of day 5 of the Food Revolution Summit. And I want to say again, you can express your opinions on the summit so far and find out what other people are saying by engaging in the comments section on our broadcast page. You can also join in the conversation on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Food Revolution Network. Come on back and join us tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern, 3 p.m. GMT for Harvesting Hope, Feed a Healthy Future. We will have some extremely powerful presentations from Dr. Vandana Shiva on how your food choices shape the world, Anna Lappe on busting the biggest food myths, and from Saru Jayaraman on sexual harassment in the food industry. And in the meanwhile, post your comments, share in the conversation, catch the replays at foodrevolutionsummit.org/replays, check out the empowerment package, and I hope you enjoy some delicious, healthy food. This is Ocean Robbins, signing off from day 5 in the Food Revolution Summit. No matter where you come from or what you've been through, the simple truth is you are meant to thrive. You deserve boundless energy, a clear mind, and a lean and healthy body. You deserve to feel confident and clear about what you eat and why. The Food Revolution Summit is packed with insights, and trying to catch and absorb all of them can be hard. That's why we created the Empowerment Package. With your Empowerment Package, you can own the entire summit, plus all the transcripts and loads of bonus materials for life. Absorb this life-changing material at a pace that's comfortable and easy for you. Join in this movement. Support this mission. Buy your Empowerment Package today.